The action takes place in Sichuan. On a battlefield full of corpses, the second disciple of the heavenly demon and young Seo are standing face to face. The demon suzerain talks to young Seo and calls him a brat. There are 3 units of the bloody heavens and 4 elders of the myriad demon palace. Even Seo Gong, the suzerain steel blood demon, fell in battle with young Seo. The second disciple of the heavenly demon sees him as a real monster. Young Seo asks the second disciple of the celestial demon what's wrong with him, as if he's seen a ghost. Turns out, Yun Seo is the 5th disciple of the heavenly demon sect leader. This was during a major war between Buddhist and demonic sects. There was a guy whose skillful hands had already taken all the most valuable things in the Central Plains. He was the legendary elusive thief. And then one day, they found the tomb of a great thief who casts no shadow in Sichuan. A lot of Buddhist sects and clans, even though they were in a fierce war with demonic sects, sent their top warriors to Sichuan to get the great thief's treasure back. When the heavenly demon heard about this, he decided to send his second disciple to Sichuan. At the time, the second disciple hadn't really bothered the Buddhist sects much, but he was about to find out that his brother, young Seo, had betrayed him. When he got to the battlefield, he was surprised that young Seo was still fighting so heroically even after being poisoned by the 7-article poison of the Tang clan. The celestial demon's second disciple told the guy that he needed to clip his wings. After all, young Sae had surpassed their sect master in skill. But young Sae told him that he doesn't want to lead the sect. He said he wasn't interested in leading the sect. The second disciple said he knew the heavenly demon was praising the skills of the younger disciple, and that for someone who wants to lead the sect, young Sae doesn't have a clue. Young Sae told the second student that if he didn't let it go, he should work on his pride. The demon suzerain figured out that young Sae was trying to provoke him. He told him it wasn't a good idea to piss off a strong opponent when he was already pretty weak. He went on the offensive. Young Sae realized his opponent knew he was already exhausted. The demon suzerain shouted to young Sae that he was on his last breath and wasn't as chipper as before. Young Seo used his last bit of energy to keep his defenses up, but he'd already missed a few hits from his opponent. At the same time, the poison spread throughout young Seo's body, and he had chi energy left for one strike. The second disciple told him to give up, but the boy said he was tired from the battle, but not so tired that he couldn't deal with him. But the demon suzerain told him he didn't need to fight him. Was he really scared? Young Sae asked. The demon boss started laughing and asked the guy if he could sense the light energy of those freaks. He told young Sae that if he didn't want to be captured by those freaks, he'd better let himself be killed. The demon suzerain promised to give young Sae a quick and humane death, just like his brother Adept. Young Sae started laughing and asked the other student if he really thought it would work. He knows how bad young Sae's temper is. Young Seo threatened the suzerain demon, saying he'd drag him to the other world with him. The demon suzerain told him he was out of line. Then, young Sae's heart started glowing with blue flames. The heavenly demon's second disciple was confused. Young Sae asked him what he was so surprised about, since everyone studies at least one dark art at some point. Young Seo started using the ultimate dark art technique, this demonic art of explosive power. The demon suzerain reminded him that this technique involved the death of the practitioner, and a very painful one at that. Young Seo said that it didn't matter if he would die such a death or not, but the important thing was that he would take the suzerain demon with him. The second disciple of the heavenly demon realized that young Seo was still dangerous and that he needed to get out of there right away. But young Seo was set on taking him with him. The suzerain demon had no choice but to use protective chi, but he realized that it was a dark art, and in terms of strength, young Seo was now comparable to all 9 suzerains of the heavenly demon sect. Young Sae was delivering the last decisive blows. The demon suzerain tried to beg for mercy, but the guy only saw one target in front of him. At that time, the people who were approaching the battlefield noticed that there was some strange energy acting there. They figured out that it was demons fighting with each other. Young Seo took down the second disciple of the heavenly demon, but he also lost all his strength and started to choke on blood. At that point, people started running in, but they'd originally sensed 2 energy sources. Now, though, both were gone. When they got closer, they saw young Seo and recognized him, and they started calling him the lurking dragon. They also checked to see what kind of dead person was lying nearby, but the body was too messed up to tell. But people realized that their robes and the ring on the finger of the dead guy said that it was a suzerain demon of intoxicating killing from the heavenly demon sect. It was clear that there was some drama going on in the sect. One of the people there told the abbot that young Seo was still alive. There wasn't a single day in young Seo's life when he did what he wanted to do. Ever since his parents put him in the cult, they were poor and couldn't take care of him, so they sold him to a cult. The boy spent the next 10 years of his life in the cave of an invisible demon, and to survive this hell, young Seo had to kill. The next 10 years were marked by war between clans, infighting in the sect, and betrayal. Young Sae survived as best he could, but no matter how hard he tried, young Sae couldn't seem to get a grip on his life. He never lived for himself. His life ended because of a betrayal by someone in his own group. As he was dying, young Sae realized that his life had been a total shit. The abbot asked the guy if he had any last words. The abbot started the rebirth ritual to send young Sae to nirvana. The guy told the man that if he were to undergo rebirth, he would like to live his life the way he wants to live it. Young Sae closed his eyes and said goodbye to his life. Then he heard voices shouting that the little brat was crying again and that he should get up right away. The people who were yelling started hitting young Sae and told him to open his eyes. He opened his eyes and was speechless at what he saw. There was that freak who dragged him into the sect and chucked him in the cave of the invisible demon. Young Sae was totally confused because he came back later and tore off the legs and arms of the bastard. He was confused about why he was calling him Dandy, but he also didn't understand. Young Sae was livid at being treated like this. He was already itching to use a technique to destroy this freak, but he put his sword to young Sae's neck, and the guy saw in the reflection that he really did look like a very young dandy. While that scumbag was threatening young Sae and holding a sword to his throat, the guy couldn't realize if this was what he looked like as a kid. The man kicked the boy and told him to look him in the eye. He started kicking young Sae's legs, but the guy couldn't understand why he was in so much pain. After all, he was dead. Then, suddenly, his colleague stopped him and said there was no need to spoil the goods, since he couldn't survive in the cave of the invisible demon. Then young Seo realized that this was the same guy who'd abandoned him in that demon's cave 20 years ago. He was now in the same house where he'd been taken to the demon sect 20 years ago. Young Seo couldn't believe that he had gone back in time. He didn't feel as young as he was back then. The bandits tied up the boy and sat down to eat. One of them was acting like he was afraid the deal wouldn't get done. Young Seo jumped in and said that the monarch's prayer to Buddha had worked, and that going back in time was actually possible. One of the bandits mentioned that an elder from the MURIM alliance was nearby, and he might be after them. They decided they needed to get out and cover their tracks, but his colleague didn't agree. He said that these old guys are just sitting around all day, and they can't do anything about it. The second one backed him up and said that the old guys had sent their minions and were just chilling in their palace, talking about the people's fate. Then they started talking about how the Heavenly River Sword became an elder at 40, even though he wasn't from any of the 5 big families or the 9 Buddhist groups. Out of nowhere, that same criminal walked up to young Seo and grabbed him, ordering his colleagues to stop talking and go to the demon sectarians instead. The boy knew he couldn't let them drag him there, or he'd end up reliving all that hell in the invisible demon's cave. The cave of the invisible demon is where a demon cult's new members are trained. The kids there are always facing real-life dangers. They have to do everything they can to survive, and the only way to survive in this cave is to pay a high price. No matter how much you study and get stronger, you'll have to fight. Young Sae realized that even though he had come out of there alive in his previous life, he couldn't guarantee that he would succeed this time as well. And even if the boy manages to survive by some miracle, he will change so much that the white light will not be nice, and 10 years will have to recover from the experience. Young Seo realized that he didn't want to ever go through all of this again, and was willing to do anything. Meanwhile, the outlaw carried the boy on his back and told the others that he would be in the wagon with the little sod, and ordered them to cover their tracks. Suddenly, the men of the Manchu clan burst into the room. They burst in shouting that the robbers had finally been caught. The bandits didn't expect this turn of events, and young Seo remembered that it was exactly the same in his past life. One of the bandits said they were the same chicks they had met a couple days ago. They told the clan that they'd better go home to mommy, and then they'd have a chance. The clan girl began shouting that they would pay with their lives for daring to insult them. The robbers began to scoff and asked if this was such a thank you for sparing them. They then started yelling that if the clan was so eager to get to the other side of the world, they would gladly help them do so and attack them. The battle was very fierce. The brigands spared no one and even enjoyed it. The man who carried young Seo on his shoulder ordered that the girls not be killed in order to take them with him. Young Sae realized that his only chance to change things came right at that second. While the men of the clan held the defenses, the boy decided to act suddenly and very quickly. Young Seo suddenly kicked the man's face from his knee. The man didn't expect such a thing and couldn't react in time. While the bandit was trying to recover, the boy grabbed a nearby vase and knocked him on the nose. After that, young Sae jumped out of the window and ran as far away as he could. The boy realized that he wouldn't be able to escape far, as this body didn't have the stamina and strength of a martial arts master. The bandit chased him and shouted after him that he would slaughter the boy as soon as he caught him. Young Sae looked for a place to hide, but the brigand was already very close. At one point, the robber still grabbed the boy's leg and began dragging him along the ground toward him. Young Sae resisted as best he could, but he was powerless. The bandit held a knife to his neck and said that he would pay for his escape. He brought the boy back to that house and told him that if he ever tried to run away again, he wouldn't look at the boy's goods. The colleague calmed the man down again and reminded him that it was time for them to go. He ordered the little bugger to be tied up tightly so that he wouldn't run away again. After such a battle and chasing the boy, the robbers in a friendly company began to drink wine from the jug that the boy had taken. Suddenly, after drinking, all the brigands started spitting their own blood. It was poison. The chief among them started shouting for everyone to start meditating immediately to expel the poison from the body. The boy began to pronounce that poison was the most effective way for the weak to defeat the strong. The bandits realized that it was all the boy's doing. Young Sae said he would let them die this time. As the boy was running away from the bandit, he remembered his means of survival in the cave of the invisible demon. He studied poisonous substances and plants. Naturally, young Sae was not a skilled poisoner like the members of the Tang clan or the Poison Valley, but he knew more about poisons than the average healer or herbalist, so he was able to orient himself quickly. Young Sae told the brigands that since they were meeting for the second time, he went to hell with them comfortably. The boy destroyed all the brigands and spared none, because they had destroyed his life in their time. Young Sae finally exhaled and rejoiced that he was now saved and wouldn't have to go to that damn cave. His joy was quickly replaced by confusion. Now the boy didn't know what to do next or where to go. And then young Seo remembered the suzerain demon of intoxicating murder who called him a traitor. The boy always repays any evil in tenfold. Young Seo realized that he should go to the heavenly demon sect and take revenge on them all. On the other hand, he was so reluctant to ever set foot in that sect again. But the boy knew for sure that he definitely wanted to be a warrior in this life, and if he didn't get strong, anyone could hurt him. The paths of a hermit or a wandering mercenary did not appeal to young Seo, for they are beggars and have no influence, and are not recognized to clans and sects. It's not reasonable to become the head of the MURIM Warrior Alliance or the leader of the Yongseo sect, because there are too many responsibilities. The boy wanted strength, power, and money, but he did not yet know what he would become, so that he could still enjoy the fruits of his wealth and fame in his old age. Young Sae paused and thought, is there such a thing? And then it was as if it had hit him. He remembered the brigands talk about old men who are only busy sitting on their asses. Young Sae remembered that the union elders he had encountered in his past life were all unclean. They divided power over the MURIM among themselves, depending on their financial and clan interests. And despite their many privileges, they were impossible to meet in battle. The boy's mind flashed back to memories from his battles, in which his allies asked if anyone had seen the elders, and if they were any good. The other adherents of the heavenly demon sect jeered at the elders and despised them, but young Seo compared their lifestyles to his own, and envy rose up in him. Someone like young Seo, who wasn't born in one of the 5 great clans, and none of the great 9 sects, would find it very difficult to become an elder. But the boy decided that knowledge and experience from his past life would help him. This was already bringing him closer to victory, but at the moment he is just a helpless boy, and he needs to find a safe place for himself, a place where young Seo can train and build her strength and plan for her future. Suddenly, one of the bound girls started yelling at the boy to help them get out. The girl asked for help to bring the young mistress back home. Young Sae approached the girls to untie them. and then he noticed a pendant on one of them. The boy remembered that they were of the Manchu clan, but he had never heard of such a thing before. Young Seo realized that if one of these girls is a young heiress, then this is his only means of getting out to the people. The boy didn't know what would happen next. He wasn't sure about this clan. But as they approached their house, he realized that the clan was quite wealthy. Young Seo was invited to the clan patriarch's room. He asked the boy if those brigands were from the demonic sect. Young Seo confirmed this information. The patriarch said he believes him, but it still requires proof. The boy said that he had no more information except what he had heard from the robbers. He also said that their bodies were left lying in that house, and if the patriarch sends people there, they will investigate and find evidence. The patriarch agreed and promised to send a brigade of warriors there. Their conversation was interrupted by the young mistress. She started shouting that she too would go with the warriors to that house. The patriarch became angry and told her that over a dozen young warriors had been defeated by some freaks from a demonic clan, and she had to be saved by a child. The patriarch then turned to the boy and told him that while he was dealing with all of this, he needed to learn a lesson from what had happened. The patriarch then asked young Seo if he had a family and a home. The boy replied that he was an orphan and his parents had abandoned him. Then the patriarch told the boy that he was small but intelligent and courteous beyond his years. He ordered Counselor Wang to provide young Sae with shelter and all the necessities. He also asked the counselor to take young Seo under his wing and teach him a trade. The counselor promised to fulfill everything. The counselor brought the boy to his new home and told him that he was letting him rest for the day. The boy thanked the counselor profusely. Now young Seo is provided with everything he needs. He has decided to begin his journey to becoming an elder of the MURIM Warrior Alliance. The boy realized that a commoner would need feats and fame among the people to do so. And in order for him to gain all this too, one must also gain achievements in martial arts. In his past life, young Seo was a disciple of a heavenly demon and was known as the strongest among the mortal MURIM. And if he succeeds in regaining his former greatness, he will be called to be a MURIM elder himself. The boy finally relaxed and decided to see what was up with his chi energy. Young Seo remembered that he had successfully developed demonic chi his entire past life. It had been 2 days since young Seo had been accepted as a guest of the Manchu clan. The boy started working as an assistant to Counselor Wang. The counselor kept an eye on the boy all the time and told him not to slack off and to do as he taught him. The counselor always reminded young Sae that the Lord had ordered him to take him under his wing. But if he worked through his sleeve, the counselor wouldn't put up with him for long. The counselor decided to go to the manor and ordered the boy to finish everything the way it should be done and come to. But young Sae stopped him and asked. The boy asked him what his salary was for his hard work. Suddenly the counselor started laughing loudly and told the boy that he was a funny guy. In his mind, he wondered if the boy thought he had to pay for it. The counselor replied to young Seo that he had not applied for a job like he should, but was already asking for a salary. He also added that if the boy works hard, the counselor will pay him out of his own pocket and there is no need to worry about that. Young Seo didn't get too upset because he doesn't plan on devoting his whole life to this job anyway, and he just needs shelter and safety. But what worried young Sae was that he only knew how to create dark chi energy in himself. He realized that a man with demonic energy would never be accepted into an alliance of MURIM warriors, much less become an elder. Therefore, young Seo decided to learn the technique of creating light chi energy that Buddhist sects know, and he needs his chi energy to be no weaker than the one he nurtured with the heavenly demon technique. That way, young Seo could use all the sword and footwork techniques he knew. But one thing that bothered him was, do Buddhists have such a strong technique for building up chi energy potential? Suddenly, young Sae remembered about a person he had heard about in his past life. There are 10 supreme masters of Buddhism. They are also called the 10 heavenly emperors. One of the emperors was known for being able to slay any demonic sect master with his bare hands. His name was Fist King. His chi potential building technique was so great that even the heavenly demon recognized it. In terms of strength, this technique was comparable to the heavenly demon energy creation technique. Young Seo realized that only the White Lightning King Fist body art technique could replace the power of demonic chi building practices for him. The boy then decided that he had no other choice and needed to make his way into the Fist King's apprenticeship to learn this technique. Only one thing was unknown to the boy. Where would he look for the Fist King at this time? Young Sae's only clue is that the Fist King will appear in Sichuan in 5 years, and the boy decided that until that time, he needed to work on himself in everything he could except the white lightning body art technique. It had been 2 years since Yong Seo had joined the clan. In 2 years, he had been building up his chi with the basic techniques of the 3 fundamentals. Except that the effectiveness of this technique is negligible. The boy's chi energy is the size of a grain of rice. Until Young Seo gained knowledge of the white lightning body art technique, he decided that he should focus on his physical strength. Young Sae tried to eat more to gain weight. The students came up to him and teased him that he had a gluttonous spirit. One of the guys ordered the boy to break away from his food and immediately go out into the courtyard with them. Young Sae replied that he didn't want to. This made the guy angry, and he reminded the boy that he is the head servant, and when he orders to go, the boy must go. Young Sae replied that he would talk when he was done. The guy then told Young Seo that he understood that because of the patronage of Mrs. He and the counselor, the guy had made a fool of himself. He stuck his fingers in the boy's food and told him that if he didn't want to start getting beaten up right there, he'd better go with them. Young Sae thought that they probably hadn't touched him until now, believing that he was being patronized by Lady He and the counselor. And the fact that Young Sae hadn't been promoted in 2 years seemed like a sign that he was nothing. Young Sae realized that they were envious because the boy had a large salary, a separate house on the estate. Young Sae still went outside with them. One of the boys said that's where they'd sorted out. The boy asked what they wanted from him. One of the students began to approach Young Seo and say that he would have taught the fatherless boy this wisdom long ago. He ordered the boy to kneel in front of them, and before he could finish speaking, Young Seo gave him a punch right in the stomach. The guy clearly didn't expect this from the boy. Young Sae continued and threw another punch straight at his jaw. The people around them were shocked. Young Sae said that this was their payback for his precious lunch hours, and he would charge them the full amount. Even though Young Sae's speech was very confident, there was still one small thing. For a kid with such a paltry chi size, running into a crowd of adults is no joke at all. However, the boy pulled himself together and began to overpower each of those present in turn. There were 3 left to defeat, one of whom had studied martial arts, and Yong Seo had very little chi energy left. Then the boy decided to waste no time and take care of their leader. He called the chief servant and asked him if he would still be hiding behind their backs. The head servant got very angry and said that he would not let the little sod show off again. He barely hit Young Seo and his nose was already bleeding. If the boy caught another direct hit, he would be in trouble. However, Young Sae knew that although the head servant had studied martial arts, he was still very inexperienced. And then the boy gathered all of his last chi energy and used the third-rate double technique. The head servant was defeated, and Young Sae began to walk away, while asking the others around him if they had any grievances too. But the others only apologized to the boy. Young Sae had returned home. He had expended a lot of chi energy, and he knew that if the last 2 decided to attack him, it would already be a serious challenge. Young Sae realized that the small chi potential was his biggest problem. He began to think about how to get the elixir. Suddenly his musings were interrupted by a knock on the door. Young Seo opened it and was very surprised to have such guests. Mrs. He came to see him along with her maid of honor Hua. Madam said that they say Young Sae is serving Counselor Wang well. Young Seo replied that there was nothing special about his service, just moving papers from place to place. The dialogue was somewhat strained, and the boy asked what he owed to the visit of the mistress. The lady then replied that she wouldn't beat around the bush and offered Young Sae to serve her. She explained that she had unwittingly witnessed him fighting with the servants, and she was very impressed. Young Sae was angry because he didn't want to attract attention, so he dealt with them quietly. He replied to mistress that he just knew a couple simple tricks, and she didn't need someone like him at all. Mrs. He said she wanted to create a squad of loyal men, a strong band of warriors. She will make her brothers and sisters reckon with her authority. She then went on to say that Young Sae owed her for being in this place after all, and offered to return kindness for kindness. Young Sae was in a desperate situation and agreed. The lady promised him that he wouldn't regret his decision. She also told Young Seo that if she prevailed in the inheritance fight and became the head of the clan, Young Seo could ask her for whatever she wanted. Young Sae thanked Madam and they left. But the lady warned him not to tell anyone about it, especially Counselor Wang. The next day, Young SAE went to the counselor's office as usual. Wang was filling out some papers and asked the guy what he wanted to talk to him about. Young SAE replied that he wanted to inform him that Mrs. He intended to fight the battle for the position of clan head. Then the counselor asked why he had come to him with this. After all, Counselor Wang always maintains neutrality. Young SAE smiled and explained that he had been working as his assistant for 2 years. And in that time, he had no trouble guessing that the advisor was betting on the young master. Those words made Wang a little confused, but asked if young SEO was offering him to be his informant and keep an eye on the lady. Young SAE replied that if it was beneficial to him, he would gladly work for him in such a capacity. The counselor was surprised at how he spoke of it with such ease. 2 years ago, young SAE saved Lady He and her maid of honor from certain death, but she never thanked him or approached him since then. And now that she needs something from young SEO again, she shows up immediately. Young SEO realizes that if he trusts people like this, he'll be betrayed and discarded. The boy realized that the mistress wanted to use him and decided that he would rather he secretly use her for his own purposes. Young SAE told the counselor that he only takes risks when he sees a worthy benefit. Then the master asked what he wanted in return. Young SEO had not yet learned the techniques for building up high-level chi energy, so he needed an elixir. Young SEO knew the recipes for some of the elixirs from his past life, and only the ingredients were needed. Young SEO told Counselor Wang that he has not been feeling well lately, and in return for such service, he needs healing herbs. The counselor was very surprised and asked if he was sure that was all he needed. The boy answered that he didn't need anything else. The counselor agreed to such a condition, but every time young SAE smiled, he felt like he was an unusual child. Since then, young SAE had reported to the counselor everything he saw and heard during his interactions with Mrs. He. And from the medicinal herbs of excellent quality that the counselor had paid off, young SEO was able to make elixirs that restored chi energy. Young SEO devoted all his free time to physical exercise and practicing his techniques to perfection. Another 3 years went by like that. In the end, Mrs. He lost the battle for the position of clan head and was favorably married off and sent away. Once upon a time, young SAE asked the lady's maid of honor what she would do if her lady was defeated in a power struggle. The maid of honor asked what defeat meant. Young SAE said that in such a case, it was customary to deal with unwanted heirs in such a way as to send them away. The boy told the maid of honor that they should both think about the future since their fates were tied to the mistress. The maid of honor replied that she had never thought about it. Then young SAE asked her if she had ever considered joining the MURIM Warrior Alliance. The girl said it sounds very beautiful, but it's all just silly pipe dreams. Young SAE directed her thoughts in the right direction and hoped she would make the right decision. After all, when he himself joined the alliance, it would be nice to have his own person there. It is not known whether this conversation played a role, but afterwards, the maid of honor refused to follow her mistress and left the Manchu manor. It was Young Seo's 5th year of service to the Manchu clan. All the preparations had finally been completed. Young Seo made the decision that it was time for him to move on. He had made the most out of this place. But when the counselor found out about it, he said that there was no way he would let young Seo go, because he had been preparing him as his successor from the beginning. The counselor didn't understand if young SAE wasn't enough with the salary he was receiving and the herbs he was provided. He even started sobbing and asked young SAE not to leave. Young Seo told him that he had already made up his mind and he was sorry. But young SAE knew that the old fox had been more and more devious lately. After all the money he had transferred to the boy had been earned through honest labor, not for the pretty eyes. The counselor continued that through young SAE's efforts, the young master had risen to the position of clan head. He told the boy that he could have a bright future. In a moment, the counselor snapped and started yelling that young SAE was a tomboy and what he even wanted. He was willing to give anything the guy asked for. Young SAE explained that he didn't need anything more and that he intended to become a martial artist. When the counselor heard this, he assumed that young Seo was breaking through to martial arts master because he had learned a couple techniques in the past few years. The counselor just lost his temper and called young SAE a morel who couldn't even handle a petty bully. Young SAE really wanted to leave nicely, as he had gotten used to the old man over the years, but alas. Then young SEO proposed a bet to the counselor. Young SAE promised that he could handle any opponent he put up against him, and if young Seo loses, It will be the way the counselor wants. The guy will listen and stay in the clan. But the one the counselor put against Young Soo was the strongest warrior after the clan head, commander of the Manchu clan guards. Young Sae thought that the old man had lost his conscience, putting the commander of the guards in a duel with a 15-year-old boy. But the guy didn't get upset, because it didn't matter who he fought. The commander asked the counselor about the rules of battle. The counselor said that the one who threw the opponent to the ground wins, and also the victory counts when one of them surrenders. The counselor also grinned and asked the commander not to nail the boy, for he would be his successor. Young Sae immediately reminded the advisor that he had promised him a year's salary if he won. After all, it would come in handy on a long journey. The counselor replied to make sure Young Sae didn't forget too that if he lost, he would have to work for another 3 years. He told the commander that he was counting on him. The commander told Young Sae that he was conceding the first strike to him. The boy didn't refuse. Despite the amount of elixirs taken, Young Seo's chi energy was still low. Then Young Sae decided to deal with it as quickly as possible. But the guy didn't expect the commander to be so strong. In the first few minutes of the battle, the commander was clearly winning. The counselor watched this and thought that he had asked the commander not to kill the boy. However, things quickly changed course. Young Sae began to apply the techniques he had learned in the meantime. The commander was surprised that Young Sae had repelled his sword strike, and said that in that case, he would fight him at full strength. The counselor marveled at the glowing energy of the commander's sword. After all, only clan guards could do that. However, the counselor suddenly noticed that Young Seo's sword was also glowing. Had he already reached such a level? Young Seo replied to the commander that he wasn't going to play giveaway anymore either. This made the commander even angrier. The fight was no laughing matter, and the counselor was beginning to regret what he had set up. The commander decided to use the beam of light, but Young Seo was even happy about it because the commander was definitely out of luck now. The beam of light technique was Young Seo's favorite and strongest technique. Young Sae was victorious after all, even though it was not an easy task. The commander admitted his defeat. The commander apologized to Young Sae and said that he had overreacted. He replied that it was okay, because he was entitled to a year's salary for it. Young Sae noticed that the old man seemed to be plotting to break his promise, so he warned him. The counselor promised to keep his word. The counselor still gave the promised salary, and Young Seo set off on his free journey with peace of mind. As Young Sae left, the commander told the counselor that all this time, a dragon had been quietly living near them in the manor and hiding its identity. The advisor asked the commander if this boy was his equal in strength. The commander replied that even the head of the clan wouldn't be able to fight Young Sae. The counselor then wondered who this boy was, if he was such a skilled warrior that even the entire Manchu clan had no equal to him. Meanwhile, Young Seo continued on his way and stopped by his old enemy, the head servant. Young Sae told him that he knew he was a member of the House Secret Society. The head servant denied it. Then Young Seo scared him even more and said there was no point in denying it because it would be worse. Young Sae asked the head servant about his tattoo on his ankle, which suggests that his title is no less than Master of Incense. The head servant was very frightened and began to ask Young Seo how he knew all this. Back then 3 years ago, Young Seo had realized who the head servant really was, but he had been waiting for this day. Young Sae plotted back then that this scumbag would be part of his plan. The head servant kept shouting and asking what he wanted. Young Sae replied that it's nothing small at all. He just needs to bring Young Sae into the Secret House Society. The House Secret Society is an unconventional place inhabited by merchants, courtesans, and servants. The most vulnerable segments of the population have banded together in an alliance, the weakest in MURIM, a secret society of peepers, closely allied with the beggar sect. This society is the largest of the MURIM alliance in terms of numbers. However, its leaders are hard to track down and keep a low profile. But Young Seo is on the hook for someone who will bring him into the community. The same head servant who holds the position of Master of Incense in the secret society. Young Seo continued to threaten the head servant and began to ask how he could become a customer for the Secret House Society. The head servant told the boy that if he wanted to become a customer, he had gone to the wrong place, because he had no right to decide on such matters. Then Young Sae replied to him that he must have already thought about reporting to his leadership from How, because he had revealed his affiliation by his tattoo. Young Seo said his management would be very interested in him after hearing his story. The servant got very angry and said that their society does not do business with untested people. Young Sae answered him, "Since when did the house secret society choose who they deal with? After all, they even work with demonic sects when they need to." This just pissed off the servant. He told young Seo to think what he was saying. Otherwise, that way one could become an enemy of the secret society. The head servant told the lad that not everyone can order the services of their society. It costs money, and a lot of it. He told the boy that with his income it was impossible. Young Sae contradicted him and said that the house society doesn't just take money. Then the servant asked if he had any skills he wanted to pay with. Young Seo told the servant to give them the message because he had information regarding the youngest of the leader's disciples. Young Sae continued on his way and entered a house called Bright Moon. He sat down at a table and was told that the owner would be here soon. Young Seo wanted to give the leadership of the house secret society valuable information that he remembered from his past life. And the mysterious leaders of this society have no choice but to come to him in person. In return, he will demand information about the Fist King. The House Secret Society is young Seo's only hope to track down the Fist King and obtain the powerful light technique of Chi energy augmentation. An old lady accompanied by a lovely lady entered the establishment from the back door. Young Asai said hello and asked her to take a seat. He asked the lady if she was the leader of the local chapter of the House Society. The old woman replied that he was absolutely right. The pretty girl poured tea for young Sae, and he asked her what her name was. The girl replied that her name was Wa. The lady noticed that young Sae was attracted to Wa. The guy asked her how old she was. The girl replied that she would be 23 this year. She was even embarrassed by such attention to herself. Young Sae replied that she was quite young enough to be the leader of the local chapter of the House Society. Wa got really angry and asked how he realized it. She didn't even bother to deny it, though. Wa felt that if he was aware of their tattoos, there was no need to deny. Wa ordered the guy to answer her question as he realized. Young Sae asked what would happen if he didn't answer. The girl said that her decision on whether to fulfill his orders depended on it. Young Sae replied that the leaders of the House Society guard the secret of their identity very jealously. And here, the supposed leader comes at the first call, taking a courtesan to an important negotiation. Isn't that funny? Young Sae continued. Wa replied that she was always obligated to be present when deals were made. Young Sae said that's why he realized it was her way of not declassifying herself. Wa apologized to the guy and said she didn't know he had such a deep knowledge of their community and offered to move on to closing the deal. Young Seo smiled and said that again she was lying to him since it wasn't her he would be making the deal with. And with the one hiding in the ceiling, young Sae continued. And then an unknown person jumps from the ceiling right onto the table. He jumped down and immediately started attacking young Sae, while saying that he didn't expect young Sae to be that good. Young Seo knew that the House Society was vast, but still, true martial artists were not among them. There is only one master among them, one of the leaders of the secret society. In strength, he is equal to the great Murama masters. As the battle progressed, young Seo realized that his opponent with such skills must be among the top of the secret society in esteem. Young Sae was fishing, and he caught a sperm whale. Such events were only good for the guy. The battle continued. Young Seo could see that his opponent's agility skills were so high that he could barely keep up with him without losing sight of him. The guy thought that he must have been sent by the secret society's leadership. They took the bait faster than young Sae expected. Young Seo started telling his rival that he came because he needed the services of their society and that he didn't want to fight. His opponent shouted to him that in that case he should drop his sword and explain himself immediately. Young Sae clarified to explain specifically. How does he know who the real leader of the local branch is? Or why did he hide the fact that he's a martial artist? Or how does he know the secrets of their society? The opponent replied that everything needs to be explained. Young Sae told him that it doesn't work that way, and if they want to do business with him, he demands equality. The opponent got really angry and said that if the guy didn't talk now, he would be silenced forever. Young Sae replied that he hardly had the strength to do that. Without coming to any common conclusion or decision, they clashed swords again in battle. Young Sae hadn't expected his opponent to be so good at martial arts techniques. He even managed to cut his cheek. Young Seo told his opponent that he didn't think they killed their guests, and wondered if they always worked that way. His opponent replied to him that he shouldn't have provoked them, and was about to finish off young Seo with one punch. Finally, young Sae waited for the moment when his opponent was rushing forward, forgetting about caution. Now young Sae is ready to strike the decisive blow. Young Seo used the Moon Shadow Sword technique with the power of 26 strikes. Then his opponent noticed that young Sae's sword was glowing. Young Sae hurt him badly. His opponent asked him why he diverted the sword's trajectory at the end and didn't finish what he started. Young Sae replied to him that he had told him that he needed the services of the secret house society. In fact, young Seo didn't intend to kill anyone, but merely fought back so that the negotiations would then be on his terms. Yes, and that was why he used this technique, because for his chi energy, it was too much and risky. The man asked young Sae what he could offer for their services. The man replied that he wanted information, and he would buy it with valuable information. This angered the man, and he began to shout that how dare young Seo come to the secret society of the How, the chief information merchants of all the plains, and offer information in return. Young Sae tells him that his information is much more valuable, and that he knows about the plans of one of the demonic sects, and also knows how to save the young apprentice leader of the secret society from being killed. The young apprentice was slowly dying of an unknown disease. The man asked how he knew this. The man asked if young Seo really knew how to cure the boy. Young Sae told him not to be afraid, and to just hand him over to the sect leader, to tell him that his student's illness was the work of a demonic sect. The man was shocked by what he heard. Young Seo said that before the young student fell ill, he had purchased a certain martial arts book. This book is written by a heavenly demon, young Sae continued. He also said that their student was not sick at all, but possessed by demons. He became possessed because of a book written by a heavenly demon to sow discord and heresy among Buddhist sects. A heavenly demon sent out 5 volumes to the leaders of the major Buddhist martial arts sections. His goal was to inflict demonic possession on the readers. The only ones who can cast demons out of the possessed are the celestial demon and his disciples who help write the book. It was part of young Sae's plan, since he is such a disciple. And if he's going to exorcise the demons from those who were harmed by this book, Young Seo will be able to build a pathway into the Murima alliance and achieve his goal of becoming an elder. Meanwhile, the man took out a medal from his pocket and handed it to young Seo. He said it was a plaque of the secret customer of the house society. Then young Sae asked if he could already convey the gist of the order. The man said yes. Young Seo handed him a roll of paper and said that it detailed everything. He asked him to gather information about the leader of the Yellow Dragon sect, Dugu. The man took the envelope and said that he would soon find the boy and bring him the information, and in return he would ask him to tell him the method of treatment for the student. After this, young Sae decided to go to Sichuan, where he knew the Fist King had settled. On the road to Sichuan City, 2 men were traveling on horseback. They were carrying some goods to the city. Suddenly, an unknown man jumped out of the bushes, covered in blood and holding a sword. He was clearly going to attack the people. The robber chopped off one of their heads, and the other fled in fear, taking valuables with him. After that, the brigand exhaled and said that it wasn't that easy to pretend to be crazy. On the way to Sichuan, young Sae was already driving with a paper that had all the information he needed. In such a short time, the House Secret Society had been very effective. The paper said that the right man, Young Seo, does not communicate with anyone except his family and the patriarch of the Sichuan ruling clan. Although he was nicknamed the Bloodless and Tearless Demon, he was an excellent martial arts teacher. As a human, he was humble and benevolent. 7 years ago, he became famous for single-handedly destroying one of the dark sects, the Yellow Cloud sect, and he was called the Heavenly Fist. By the time young Seo left the cave of the invisible demon and began his activities as a martial artist, he already held the title of Fist King. Nothing more is known about this man except that he settled in Sichuan about 10 years ago. The information ended with young Seo saying that they have sent out inquiries to agents in the area and are waiting for responses. If any new information comes in, they will contact the guy. However, young Sae didn't understand why the Fist King was now living under the guise of a humble martial arts teacher, a supreme master who would rank among the 10 strongest masters of the light path of heavenly emperors. Among Buddhist martial artists, he was a giant. It seems that at this time, he has yet to reach the title of Fist King. Judging from the fact that even the House Secret Society can't find any information about his past, someone is deliberately protecting the evidence of him being in other places. These years in his past life, young SEO was tested in the cave of an invisible demon. Then young SAE decided to go on a quest by himself. No effort is spared to be able to gain the trust of the Fist King and gain knowledge from him. From the carriage, the boy suddenly overheard a conversation between the people on horseback riding nearby. One was saying to the other that a demon man had been spotted in the vicinity of Sichuan. A man shared his fears that the surrounding area of Sichuan was being controlled by a demonic sect. His companion replied that if that were the case, they would have met them on their way by now. Most likely, it was just a lonely madman reveling in his dark power. But the man said that this villain is most likely very strong. He suddenly appears and suddenly disappears. It is impossible to catch him. Demon men are those who study the dark arts. Learning these powerful arts always comes with dire consequences. Adepts of a demonic sect are given a dark elixir of blood reversal so that their blood changes its properties and gains resistance to the negative effects of the dark arts. But these negative influences cannot be completely eliminated, and as a result, many adepts become obsessed with sins. If an ordinary person somehow gets their hands on the dark arts and doesn't obtain the dark elixir of blood reversal, they will turn into a bloodthirsty madman. Young SEO remembered that just at that time, there was an incident in Sichuan where a ghost demon named Jong, who was a cave elder, went on a mission and came back severely injured. The guy then suggested that it couldn't be a coincidence for two human demons to be in the same place at the same time. Young SAE quickly dismissed these thoughts, figuring that it wouldn't affect him since the ghost demon was traveling secretly. And if there really is a madman possessed by demonic power living in Sichuan County, young SEO will just give him a beating and arrest him. Young SEO arrived at the Yellow Dragon Martial Arts Hall. It is one of the best martial arts schools in Sichuan. It is incredibly large. Young SAE approached the gate of the establishment and asked the guards how he could enter the establishment. One of the men asked the guy if he was alone. Young SEO replied that he was. However, the guy immediately noticed how much they were looking down on him. The guard told the guy that he needed to prove his skills and then pay monthly tuition. Young SAE replied that he had the money and skills. The guard said that it would be more profitable to enroll next year, as the examination period was over and one would have to pay for an individual examination to be conducted by the school's supreme master. Young SEO listened carefully to all the recommendations and replied that none of it mattered to him. Then the guards looked at each other and decided to escort young SEO to the waiting room. Young SAE decided that rather than wondering what to do, he'd rather go ahead and see what would happen. Young SAE was escorted to the reception area. There he sat and pondered that if he requested an individual exam, he would easily fight Dugu himself. All that was left was to come up with a plan on how to proceed. Young SAE sat there waiting and didn't understand why no one was coming to him, as suddenly someone asked him if he wanted to join the school. Young SAE was startled by the surprise. He didn't even feel any presence. The guy introduced himself and said his name was Young SEO. The master responded with his name and introduced himself as Dugu. Young SAE couldn't believe that this was really one of the 10 heavenly emperors, the warriors of Buddhism, equal in strength to the 8 demon sect suzerain demons, a supreme master ranked among the 5 strongest celestial emperors, the future Fist King, Dugu. Young SAE had traveled there for the sake of meeting him, but he still didn't expect the meeting to be like this. Dugu said that the supreme master was absent right now, so he would take the exams in his place as one of the teachers. Young SAE decided that if this meeting took place, there was no point in going around and asked Dugu to accept him as a disciple. Dugu laughed and said he wanted to take the exam first. Young SAE replied that he misunderstood him because young SAE meant that he wanted to be his personal apprentice. Dugu was very surprised by this and was slightly shocked. Young SAE explained that he wanted to learn the martial arts of the Heavenly Lightning School. This visibly angered Doug, and he began to glow all over. Young SAE knew that it was a deadly intangible chi force controlled by human will. Dugu started shouting how dare he say the name of the Heavenly Lightning School and told young SAE to explain himself now and be completely honest if he wanted to stay alive. Young SAE was wrong when he thought that Dugu at this time had not yet reached the King Fist level. Just looking at him made young SAE's breath catch. But the guy didn't stop, as he shouldn't have started this path if he was going to chicken out now. Young Seo said that he was informed by the secret house society that Dugu was the only teacher of the secret school of heavenly lightning. And this secret school always has only one teacher who passes on the knowledge to the next one. Dugu became even angrier. Then young Sae asked him if he didn't need a chainik to continue passing down the secret martial art to the next generation. Dugu shouted that he didn't want it. Young Sae replied that he didn't want the martial art to die with him. Dugu replied that that was exactly what he wanted. Young Sae didn't understand why the master put it that way. The boy then said that he sincerely wished to learn the heavenly lightning martial art. Dugu said that he had nothing to teach him. Even though young Seo had shown amazing resistance to his chi energy, Dugu continued that the art of celestial lightning was not comprehended by talent alone. Master stood up and started to leave, while saying that he should have taught young Sae a lesson for digging into his past. But Dugu didn't want to make too much noise, so he advised young Sae to keep his mouth shut and not talk about him to anyone if he cared about his life. Young Seo didn't want to put up with this and started yelling that he wasn't going to leave and asked to hear him out. Dugu told him to leave immediately and said that he would report to the Supreme Master that young Seo had given up and failed the exam. It seems that the art of celestial lightning has a danger that young Sae didn't even know about. There's a reason why Dugu doesn't want to pass it on to his successor. Young Sae didn't expect it to be easy. He decided not to stop trying. It would be dangerous to stop trying. To Dugu, young Sae is a threat. A boy who can divulge the secret of the heavenly lightning school at any time. Young Seo decides that he needs to enter the Yellow Dragon School and become his apprentice. In the worst-case scenario, Dugu will kill him. Meanwhile, Doug was thinking that even though he had warned young Sae, no one could keep a secret forever. Dugu then decided to follow young Seo personally and make sure he could rely on him. The Supreme Master met him on his way, and what was Dugu's surprise when he saw young Sae behind him. The Supreme Master said that he had met this young man at the gate. The Supreme Master also added that young Seo is courteous and well-built for his age, and he thinks the kid will make a great warrior. The High Master reasoned that it would be unwise to give such excellent material to other schools, and decided to accept the boy into their school under his personal responsibility. Master introduced Dugu young Seo, and said that he was their best teacher, also called the Heavenly Fist. The Supreme Master also informed the boy that Dugu would now be his teacher. Young Sae accepted this with reverence and introduced himself to the teacher. Soon, young Sae started practicing. A couple of days later, at one of the regular training sessions, Dugu dismissed all the students and left only young Seo for extra lessons. Doug told the kid that he would have to work up a sweat to make up for all the missed program. Dugu also said that if young Seo left town without making a fuss and never showed up again, he had no beef with him. Young Seo replied to the teacher that if he was capable of giving up so shamefully, he wouldn't have come to study with him. Dugu asked the guy if he was sure he wanted to do this, because you'll have to work until you sweat blood, until your bones crunch, until your ligaments tear. Young Sae replied that he's always been stubborn. Dugu said that he'll see how long he'll last. Evening came. Dugu was angry that the boy had held out until just before the gym closed. And now he was the reason he was coming home late. And then, coming home, Dugu observes a picture of young Seo sitting at his desk and playing with his son. Dugu's wife said she met young Seo on her way home from the market, and he helped her carry her bags home. Young Seo told the woman that he was a student of the Yellow Dragon School, and the woman graciously invited him to dinner. Also, Moon, Dugu's wife, added that young Seo is a very well-mannered boy. Young Seo laughed and told the teacher how small the world is. They all began to eat dinner together. And with the help of chi energy, the teacher and young Sae began to communicate with each other. Dugu asked how he found his house and what he had planned. Young Sae replied that he hadn't planned anything, and that he had just met his spouse at the market and helped her since Moon had twisted her leg. Dugu ordered him not to lie to him, since he assumed the guy knew about his family from the house society. Dugu then became even angrier and suggested that young Seo had purposely set up his wife to twist her leg. Young Seo replied that he wouldn't do such a thing, but what he knows about their family is true. He also added that he's not a bloodthirsty ghoul to do such a thing. Doug replied that then they would see each other tomorrow at the gym. Young Sae agreed. Moon asked if young Sae tasted good. The guy said he was very happy with everything. The next morning, young Sae headed to Dugu's house again. Moon thanked the guy again for helping her at the market and for agreeing to take care of her son's son. Young Sae knew that to gain a person's trust, you had to charm their loved ones first. Dugo has a heart for his family, so young Seo decides to become their friend. Sun and young Sae kept going through the market. Little Sun noticed some sweets and asked to buy some. Young Sae replied that he would buy him sweets after he did his business. Afterward, the boy asked why young Seo talks to him in a polite manner. Young Seo replied that he was so used to it and never talked informally. It was young Sae's way of surviving in the invisible demon's cave. There, he had forever learned how to use informal speech with people. Sun asked if he could address him simply as Young. The guy laughed and replied that he could be addressed any way he wanted. Sun began to rush young Sae to do his business sooner so he could go back and buy sweets sooner. Suddenly, young Seo saw and felt a dark chi energy. He noticed a demon man who was looking straight into his eyes. Young Sae realized that this was the same madman possessed by demonic powers. But young Sae, who has lived in a demonic sect for 2 decades, is not easily fooled. Young Sae immediately recognized that this guy wasn't just some wandering madman. He was a master of the dark arts. Judging from the events of the time, he must surely belong to an elite squad of evil spirits led by a bloodthirsty ghost demon. However, young Seo didn't understand why he was challenging him specifically. The guy didn't want to get into a fight with a strong demonic sect warrior, but he must also provide security for Suna, who had already started to ask what was going on. Upon seeing the demon man, people began to scatter and panic broke out in the market. Suddenly, young Seo noticed people wearing robes with designs similar to those of the Taoist monks of Qingchengshan. The guy assumed that the Taoist sect had sent their warriors to Sichuan to capture the demon-possessed man. But he didn't understand why a member of the evil spirit squad was acting like a madman, and why he was drawing so much attention to himself. Sun began to ask what was wrong. Young Sae replied that they needed to hurry up and do their shopping and go home because it was turbulent. Young Sae wanted to catch and interrogate the demon man himself, but he didn't want to take any unnecessary risks. At one time in a demon cave, a demon man approached a bloodthirsty ghost demon and reported that he had looked through the aura and found what he needed. The demon ghost rejoiced at the news and said that he would finally be able to leave this backwater Sichuan and return to the heavenly demon sect. He extended a claw to the throat of the man who served him and asked why he was not happy for his master. The man asked not to kill him. Without thinking for a long time, the ghost demon destroyed the man in one move without any regret. Then he began to ask around. He asked where the Een celestial body was now, while torturing the girl next to him. It's been a month since young Seo has been in school. However, Dugu still keeps young Seo at a distance. The guy doesn't understand what secret binds him that he can't train him. Young Sae was once again strolling through the market and unexpectedly met Mrs. Moon, who was very worried. The lady ran up to the guy and told him that Sun was missing and she couldn't find him anywhere. Young Sae tried to calm her down and asked her to tell her everything. The lady said that she had come home from the market and Sun was no longer at home. The house was turned upside down. The mistress looked for him wherever he might be, but all in vain. Young Su thought that if everything in the house was upside down, the boy had been kidnapped. But who would dare kidnap the son of a famous martial arts teacher of the Yellow Dragon School? Madam Moon added that Sun has an unusual body, and he can't be out of the house for long, or else he will. Young Sae asked what exactly was wrong with the boy's body. The lady continued and said that the healer said that the boy's body was a heavenly Een body. As soon as young Seo heard this, he asked Madam to run to the Yellow Dragon School as soon as possible and convey his words to Mr. Doug. Young Seo told Madam Moon that the heavenly demon sect had kidnapped Soon. He told Madam Moon to run away as soon as possible. Young Sae realized everything. He realized that the possessed man wasn't looking at him, but at the Sun boy. So he was purposely pretending to be crazy and wandering around Sichuan looking for Een heavenly body. Young Sae knew that if this demon man was a member of the evil spirit squad, then a bloodthirsty ghost demon was most likely behind this kidnapping. Young Seo realized that the motive behind this kidnapping is to bring the heavenly Een body to be accepted back into the sect. He wants to placate Young Seo's adept brother from his past life, the first disciple of the heavenly demon, the name of the first disciple of the celestial demon Su Ak, who holds the title of King of Evil. He is the bearer of uncontrollable yang power, and he also uses flame techniques. The yang power in him carries a threat to his own life. And to neutralize this threat, he constantly needs elixirs containing strong energy. That is, he constantly needs celestial bodies. It finally became clear to young Sae that the reason Dugu came out of the shadows was to avenge his son's murder. For many atrocities, the heavenly demon exiled the bloodthirsty ghost demon away from the sect to Sichuan. And at one time, young Sae couldn't understand how he could be accepted back after that, against the rules. He had no idea that the ghost demon had made a deal with Su Ak. It turned out that it was the bloodthirsty ghost demon, that old obese goon, that caused Dugu to become the Fist King. Yong Seo has been to Sichuan many times on behalf of the sect leader, so he knows by heart all the places where a bloodthirsty ghost demon can go. Except that the exact place he was headed to, young Sae didn't know yet, and hoped he wouldn't be late while he was checking each one. Meanwhile, the demon held the boy in its claws. One of his servants advised him not to press on the boy's acupuncture points, because that would kill him. Because if it bleeds, there's no stopping it. The ghost demon laughed and said that there was no difference, because the boy only needed to live until they arrived at the sect. After that, the ghost demon asked his ward if he had gotten a reply from the lousy Su Ak. The subordinate replied that no reply had been received and asked whether to send another messenger. The demon replied that there was no need, as he had no choice but to accept it. Suddenly their carriage was stopped by a Qingxing man. He said he would punish them for killing the innocent. Hearing this, the ghost demon ordered to kill this wretched worm that dared to block his path. A massacre began. The monk didn't expect that they were all from the demonic sect. The forces were definitely unequal. The monk held the defense for a surprisingly long time. The ghost demon got tired of it and sent a subordinate to deal with it. He was stronger than the others. But then young Sae suddenly appeared. The subordinate asked who he was. He replied that he didn't want to hurt them, and warned that they'd better not pounce if they wanted to get on with their worthless lives. However, at this moment, young Seo was still wondering what he should do, since all these warriors from the evil spirit squad are all high-level masters. The lad realized that if he fought them on the monk side, they could overpower them. But the carriage is driven by the commander of a squad of evil spirits, and in the carriage itself sits a bloodthirsty ghost demon. Young Sae understood the effort it took for him to get his life back, and to die a dog's life now was something he simply couldn't do. Young Seo began to blame himself for what was happening. He thought that he shouldn't have agreed to go out with Sun that day. However, the guy realized that if he saved Sun, he could earn Dugu's trust that way. The guy makes the decision to grab Sun and run as fast and as far away as possible. Young Seo caught a good opportunity to look inside and suddenly attack the bloodthirsty ghost demon. However, the ghost demon sensed Young Seo and pushed him back a few meters with a single swing. The guy managed to stay on his feet and noticed the ghost demon's son in his hands. He was still alive, so young Seo realized that they needed him alive to deliver Su Ak. Young Seo began to fight an opponent several times stronger than himself because he had to save the boy. Young Sae managed to snatch the boy from the ghost demon's grasp. However, he was caught by his jackal servants. The demon ghost started yelling for them to immediately bring young Seo to him alive, because he didn't deserve a quick death. The squad leader immediately threw himself at young Sae. He had no choice but to save Sun's life and his own. Realizing that he couldn't overcome everyone with a baby in his arms, young Seo decided to hand the boy over to the monk. Young Seo ordered him to take the boy and run away from there faster while he held them off, because they wouldn't even be able to overpower them together. Young Seo asked the monk to hurry, for someone must save the boy and call for help. The monk agreed and said he would call the clan warriors. The ghost demon orders his mutts to run after the monk, and he takes young Seo on. Young Sae was a little relieved for Sun, because he had confidence in the monk. Now he could fight the ghost demon. Young Sae tells the demon that he is so blinded by his need for a valuable ransom that he doesn't even realize he has stolen a child from a tiger. The ghost demon started laughing and told young Sae that he was bluffing because he was afraid of him. The boy realized that just as in his previous life, so now this old fool did not realize that he had incurred the wrath of the great master by his actions. The ghost demon attacked young Seo. They started fighting a very intense battle. The guy held on very well until the demon grabbed him. Young Sae realized that defeating the bloodthirsty ghost demon was suicide for him right now. However, young Seo has experience fighting his son and student, Hwa. He is much stronger, but they have the same martial arts foundation. Young Seo knows all of his techniques at the same time. He is unaware of him, and to him, young Seo is unpredictable. The ghost demon is hard to defeat, but young Seo is able to buy himself time. But while the guy was saving Sun, he got injured and doesn't know how much longer he'll last. Young Seo began to apply 3 consecutive strikes, followed by a full moon that blinded the demon. The demon ghost was very angry. He couldn't understand how a brat who had barely learned to walk could scratch him. After that, the demon couldn't stand it and said that he wanted to take him alive, but he wouldn't play anymore. Young Sae barely had time to put up a block. A little more and the demon's blow would have turned his insides into mush. The demon ghost was very surprised that young Sae was still alive, but he promised not to leave a speck of dust behind. Young Seo replied that the gods had gifted him with not only intelligence but also survivability, and reminded the demon that the monk had already run far away. The demon ghost began to laugh and said that the monk wasn't going anywhere because his men were already waiting for him. At this time, the monk and the boy were indeed being waited on by people from the demon ghost squad. Young Seo knew that there were 24 people in the evil spirit squad, but the fact that they would be stationed exactly where the monk would run to, he could not have foreseen. It was now clear to young Sae why the ghost demon was being so calm. However, the guy couldn't worry about others right now. Young Sae will have to face a bloody ghost demon in a deadly battle. The commander of the evil spirit squad stands aside for the time being because he has been ordered to. However, young Sae realized that the commander could intervene at any moment. He wondered if he had made a mistake when he tried to save the boy. Things turned out so that young Sae was already starting to regret his action, but he quickly pulled himself together and decided that there was no time for regret. He knew that if you were always afraid of death, you shouldn't even stick your nose in the MURIM. Danger, moreover, often opens up unexpected opportunities. Young Sae gathered his strength and once again engaged in battle with the ghost demon. He hoped that he would be able to hold on for a while and help would come. Meanwhile, the monk was trying to hold his defenses against 24 demons. He realized that there were too many of them, and there was nowhere to run. The demons were yelling at the monk to give up. They knew he was trying to stall until the clan came to his aid. Monk realized that he could not survive against such opponents, so he said that he had a proposition for them. The monk suggested that they move somewhere so that the child would not be hurt, for they needed him alive too. However, the demons would not listen to the monk and started shouting at him not to hold them for fools because he would not be able to fool them. The monk didn't realize if this was his death. He pursued them to catch the demon-possessed man, but he could not do that either. The monk remembered young Sae's words, how he had asked him to protect the child. He realized that he had failed at that too. Then the monk realized that this was his end. He closed his eyes and apologized to his god for failing to protect the innocent soul of a child. But suddenly the monk opened his eyes and saw before him the man who had saved their lives. The monk did not understand who it was. It was Dugu. He barely made it in time to avoid grief. He didn't understand why the demons were rampaging there and not in Xinjiang. However, he pronounced that none of these foul things would come out of this forest alive. The monk tried to turn to Doug, but the master told him to wait. Dugu began to destroy one by one. Monk couldn't keep up with him. His speed, his strength, his movements. Dugu shouted that this wasn't just a battle for him. This was the ultimate hunt and brutal revenge. The monk had no idea that there were such masters in Sichuan. He managed to deal with 24 demons in a few seconds. The monk asked Dugu who he was. Dugu replied that he was the boy's father and told him to leave quickly and bring his son to safety. The monk was surprised that Dugu had entrusted him with his son. Dugu said that he would definitely come to King Chengshan in person later to express his gratitude to their monastic order. He also added that he would like to compose an escort, but he needs to hurry to save his student. Meanwhile, young Seo was trying to hold his defenses against the ghost demon with his last strength. The guy had almost no energy left. Young Sae tried to be cunning and bypass the ghost demon in various ways, but it wasn't working anymore. The demon ghost realized that young Seo was only provoking him and had no magical art skills behind his soul. The demon literally lost his temper and threw a powerful punch. Young Seo flew back a few meters and spat on the ground. Young Sae didn't faint. He didn't understand how this damn old man being so fat was moving so fast. Jong knew that the ghost demon was a great master who had perfected all aspects of chi energy, stamina, physical strength, and even combat experience. The ghost demon noticed that young Seo was clinging to life with all his might, and he was even amused by it. The boy knew he had to hold on for a while and wait for help. The demon began to land one blow after another. As long as young Sae was still able to avoid the direct blows, he was still able to avoid them. Young Sae saw that the demon's pride was hurt because he couldn't handle the child and embarrassed himself in front of his subordinate. Young Seo's sword was broken, so he could only dodge his blows with a set of movements of 1,000 palms spiritualized by the Azuras. But it takes a huge amount of chi energy, which young Sae doesn't have. The guy has no effective techniques against the demon right now. The demon's attacks were very spectacular. Young Seo decided that instead of blocking the blows, he should dodge. Young Sae realized that if the demon didn't hit him, he would waste all his strength. The main thing was not to get hit by any of the powerful blows. The commander at this time watched and saw that the boy was really strong, though exhausted, but he didn't miss a single strong attack. The commander saw a child who was not yet 20 years old desperately fighting against an invisible demon cave elder, while the elder lost all his composure. The commander remembered his duty. It was his duty, as the commander of the evil spirit squad, to stop the elder when he lost his temper. So despite the order, the commander decided to intervene. The commander came down from the top and wounded young Seo. The ghost demon started shouting that he had told him not to interfere. The commander reminded him that they needed to clear out the old shelters, and they were just wasting time. The commander also warned that the Qingchengshan monk order would also soon appear as their mental link would break with the monk. The demon ghost got angry and said that he would get his punishment for disobedience, but in the meantime, let him watch him tear young Seo apart. Suddenly, the ghost demon was interrupted by Master Dugu's appearance. Young Sae was very happy to see him and said that he was a little late. Dugu told the boy that he was good for holding out. Young Sae replied that he wasn't and asked him to deal with the demons quickly and take him to a healer. The commander couldn't move. He couldn't understand what kind of person he was. After all, he, who had reached the pinnacle of awareness, could not move out of fear. The ghost demon didn't understand anything either. Was it really objectified chi energy controlled by will? The demon couldn't believe that this was a supreme master that he was helpless against. Not that it was one of the 10 heavenly emperors. Dugu questioned the demon. He asked for what purpose he had kidnapped his son, and how he had even had the presence of mind to do so. The demon replied that he had no idea who he was, or who his son was. Young Sae reminded the demon that he had warned him who his son was. The ghost demon replied that he thought young Seo was bluffing, but it turned out that he was telling the absolute truth. The demon told Doug that if he wanted his son to stay alive, he shouldn't do anything rash. Doug replied that if he relied on his mutts, they were already dead. Dugu asked the demon again for what purpose he kidnapped his son and what he needed. Young Sae told his teacher that he already knew everything about the demon's purpose. Dugu replied that he didn't want the demon alive anymore. Young Seo told the teacher that it was so, but if he broke his arms and legs, his energy center would survive, and by bringing this to Qingchengshan, it would be a very glorious offering of gratitude. Dugu agreed but decided to tackle the commander first. He destroyed him in a second. The ghost demon at this time was pondering how he could escape to survive and later find them and tear them to shreds. However, he couldn't do it in any way. He couldn't even move. Such hopelessness made the demon angry. The best solution for the demon seemed to be to take young Seo hostage so that he could blackmail her to secure his freedom. The demon ghost already wanted to grab the guy, but young Seo told him that it was the stupidest decision to turn his back on the Supreme Master. At that time, Master Dugu grabbed the ghost demon and destroyed it. The old man's mind had completely deteriorated, young Sae thought. Young Seo woke up all covered in bandages and couldn't figure out where he was, assuming it was a treatment center. The boy's condition was simply terrible. However, he realized, thanks to the last incident, that he could change the course of events with his actions. In his past life, things worked out so that Dugu joined the MURIM Warrior Alliance and then lost his son. Dugu's kidnapping and murder was to happen later. Perhaps the reason is that young Seo took Sun along for the ride, and there they were seen by one of the demonic sectarians. But the guy realized that he shouldn't be filled with confidence from knowing the past, because things could go wrong. Unexpectedly, Mrs. Moon entered the room and was very happy that young Sae had finally come to his senses. The lady told the guy that he was very badly injured and began to thank young Sae for everything he had done. Young Seo replied that he shouldn't be thanked because he did what he had to do. Suddenly, Master Dugu came into the room and asked if he had finally woken up. Young Sae was even startled by the surprise. The teacher told young Sae that he had been unconscious for 10 days. The boy was surprised and asked where he was now. Dugu replied that it was the Sichuan Tang clan's medicine house. Young Sae was surprised and asked if it was the same clan that belonged to the 5 great houses. The Sichuan Tang clan has given the world many great healers, and it is also known for its poison experts. Young Sae told the teacher that he had heard about the Tang clan and that their healers were very expensive. The teacher replied that he didn't have to worry about money. Young Sae thanked the teacher and asked how his son was feeling. Dugu replied that he was fine. He asked young Sae not to worry since son wasn't hurt, traumatized, or even affected by pressing the acupuncture points. Young Sae replied that he was very happy about it. Dugu thanked the guy again and said that he owed him a debt of gratitude. The teacher said that he could ask for anything he wanted besides the Heavenly White Lightning School's martial arts training. But young Sae replied that that was exactly what he was asking for. Dugu got really angry and told him to stop. Young Seo replied that he wanted nothing in life so much as to learn this martial art. The teacher said that he had already told him that he wouldn't be able to learn it. Then young Sae demanded that he at least explain why he couldn't. The guy wanted to know what he should give up his dream for and what Dugu was so afraid of. Dugu agreed to explain to young Sae so he would know why it was so dangerous. In doing so, he applied a barrier of chi around them so they couldn't be heard. Dugu told young Seo that he couldn't learn the Heavenly Lightning School's martial arts because it could only be mastered by people with impenetrable vessels. Young Sae was shocked and asked the teacher if he was referring to the inborn curse of the body in which a person doesn't live to be 20 years old. Young Sae knew that this disease was even rarer than celestial body. Dugu confirmed it. The teacher explained that the disease of impassable vessels is when a person's vessels are too narrow and rigid, causing the circulation of chi energy to be impaired. Because of this, a person with impassable vessels, unless of course they learn energy-building techniques, cannot survive, because the stagnation of chi energy that builds up over time is deadly. Young Sae asked what this disease had to do with the Heavenly Lightning School. The teacher said that the White Lightning body art makes the chi energy powerful and heavy. It becomes deadly. Thus, if a person with an ordinary body learns the Heavenly Lightning body technique, their blood vessels would not be able to withstand it and burst. At the same time, people with the disease of impassable vessels are free to withstand the circulation of powerful white lightning. Their vessels are thick and stiff, and this saves them. Young Sae knew that there was some kind of obstacle, but the fact that it would involve impenetrable vessels he had never imagined. Dugu said that naturally he too was born with impassable vessels. The power of the white lightning chi energy widened them and made them circulate freely. This disease has a perfect symbiosis with this chi potency building technique. That's why the knowledge holder of the Heavenly Lightning School cannot have more than 2 receivers. It's very hard to find a suitable student with such a disease. Dugu said that Yong Seo must have thought that Heavenly Lightning School was just a secret sect that had a rule of not taking more than 1 student. Then Young Seo asked the teacher why he said he didn't care if his knowledge of this school died with him. After all, just because it was difficult for him to find a disciple was no reason to give up. Dugu replied that it was, because there was a way for an ordinary person to learn the school of celestial lightning. Young Sae jumped with joy at this news. He realized that he would do anything to learn these techniques. Dugu said that to do this, a master must control the circulation of his students' chi and gradually build up the energy potential. Young Sae interjected that this way he would need constant monitoring. The teacher replied that it would be very difficult for his body. The boy asked how the teacher knew that, since he hadn't started teaching him yet. He added that Dugu's words had not convinced him to give up the idea. Dugu said there was a time when he despaired of finding children with vascular obstruction and decided to take orphan children as apprentices. Master Dugu's teachings had ruined the innocent souls of those children. He could not continue to sacrifice the children's lives. So Dugu set out on a journey across the central plains to find a disciple among the patients with vascular obstruction. And naturally, it was almost impossible. Again, he turned to educating the orphans, despite the possible sacrifices. He wanted so much for at least one of them to survive and become the heir of the Heavenly Lightning School. But time and time again, they died. Dugu was disgusted with himself for being blinded by ambition, forgetting how this teaching always ended up for ordinary children. So even if the knowledge dies with him, he will have no regrets. Better that than to be the cause of innocent victims again. Dugu said that even if he had a student who survived, he would have to do what he did in the future to pass on the knowledge to the next generation. Entering the MURIM, young Sae had already resigned himself to the thought of death, but dying in battle and causing death to innocent people were not the same thing at all. Young Sae told the teacher that he had no idea how heavy a stone he carried on his heart. Dugu began to tell the guy that he could ask for whatever he wanted, but not to make him teach him the white lightning body art. Young Seo smiled and told the teacher not to be afraid because he wouldn't get mad at him even if he died. Dugu got angry and asked if he even realized that even with his support and help, it was nearly impossible. The teacher added that he didn't doubt young Seo's talents, but talent doesn't help in learning this martial art. Only trial and error can help. Young Seo knew that in his past life, he had learned the heavenly demon creation chi energy capacity building technique, the most powerful in the entire MURIM. So he told the teacher that if he was worried about it, he shouldn't worry because he had plenty of experience. Young Sae asked Doug to start, and said that he was the solution to all his problems and mistakes in the past. The guy with full confidence assumed a comfortable teaching position and told the teacher he was fully prepared. Dugu understood that the white lightning body art could kill a person if they made even the slightest mistake when performing the energy technique. Dugu knew that if something happened to young Sae through his fault, he would never be able to wash away that sin. The teacher realized that the kid had a special physical ability, and perhaps he could learn the white lightning body art. Dugu tried to talk young Sae out of it, but he refused after all he had learned. Despite everything, the teacher's hope to pass on his knowledge to his heirs was still alive. The teacher crouched down next to his student, and in the back of his mind began to pray that nothing would happen to the boy. Dugu told young Seo that the heavenly lightning body art strengthens the body and vessels, and if he endures it, there will come a time when his body's regeneration will strengthen and heal the damage. Young Seo was very eager to reach this level and understood what he was going to go through. The teacher said that he would start transferring his chi energy into his vessels. Dugu told the boy to watch the energy circulation carefully and learn to control it. He reminded him that it would be very difficult. The teacher warned that he would gradually increase the amount of chi he would transfer into his vessels, and young Seo would feel the heaviness of that energy. Dugu reminded him again that if his vessels couldn't take it, they would burst. Young Sae asked the teacher not to worry about it. The guy told Doug not to be afraid because what scares him so much won't happen again, and asked him not to hesitate and to start. The teacher agreed and proceeded. Young Seo felt that the energy was not as coarse as the demonic chi from the heavenly demon's creation, but just as powerful and heavy. Dugu told the guy to focus on the movement of chi energy and immersed young Sae's aura into his own. Now the boy saw what the teacher's energy was like. The teacher started to transfer the energy. Young Sae was about to follow the teacher's actions, but he found it hard to concentrate because of the pressure of the power of the energy. Young Sae realized that he had to focus because if his attention was diverted from his teacher's movements for even a second, his chi would be thrown into chaos. In his previous life, young Sae had grown to be a supreme master, so he thought he could do it too. At this time, the teacher shouted that he was slowly increasing the amount of chi energy and told the guy to concentrate. Just a slight increase in energy, and young Sae's veins were ready to burst. He couldn't withstand the pressure. The energy was too powerful. Young Sae realized that he had to focus, or he would pass out. At best, the teacher began to think that he had rushed the increase in energy. After all, young Sae had concentrated so well at first, but Dugu realized that if he stopped now, his chi energy would get out of control. He began to tell his disciple to bear with him a little longer. Dugu started shouting as hard as he could that just a little more and the first phase would be over. Young Sae had a little more to endure. Finally, the first phase ended. Young Sae didn't come to his senses. The teacher began to think that he had failed. Dugu began to blame himself. He asked young Sae to wake up, but the guy still didn't come to his senses and didn't respond. Suddenly, the teacher noticed some kind of movement of young Seo's body. The guy got to his feet and asked the teacher what was wrong with him and why he was screaming like that. Dugu was very happy. He started to thank all the gods that his student was alive, and he couldn't believe it. The teacher told young Sae that if something happened to him, he wouldn't be able to live through it. He felt the same way when Sun was kidnapped. Young Sae asked the teacher not to say that, but to be happy that he was finally doing well. The boy said he was really looking forward to the teacher's lessons and asked if he could ask a question. Young Sae said that the chi in his body was unevenly distributed, as if it was divided into two halves. He said that there was a discrepancy between his mind and energy. The teacher said that he needed to get used to the fact that the voids in his body would be filled due to the greater density of chi. In that case, young Sae said that he should devote more time to this energy-building technique, and it wasn't enough on its own. The teacher replied that he had said that the body of white lightning, it is an art not on building up the quantity of energy, but its quality. That is why it gives results more slowly. But after the initiation stage, the results will increase dramatically. The body, skilled in this technique, begins to attract the energy of the surrounding world to itself. Young Sae asked how much he needed to build up to for that to happen. The teacher replied that he would need to grow to a 6-decade cycle. Young Sae had never heard of such a thing before, but the guy knew that by the time he reached the full cycle, he would be a decrepit old man by then. Master said that at this stage, he would be the strongest among the 5 great clans and 9 great sects. But then young Sae asked his teacher how he himself was able to reach such a level at such a young age. The teacher threw a box in his hands and told him to look at it. Young Sae opened the box and saw the elixir. Young Sae laughed. Are the secret elixirs of Shaolin nowadays sold like seeds at the market? Then the teacher told young Seo that when he was young, Grandmaster Jong had given this to him personally in his hands. Young Sae couldn't believe his ears that it was the Shaolin abbot himself, the Buddha who had ascended to the throne of Jong. The guy couldn't believe that it was a small circle elixir given by Master Jong himself. It gave an increase in energy equal to half of a 6-decimal circle. If young Sae had accepted it, he would have only mastered half of it because of the use of the white lightning body technique. The boy wondered who the teacher was in his youth. The teacher told the guy that if he didn't like the gift, he could return it. Young Sae replied that he would never forget that favor. Dugu told young Sae that he helped him start learning the white lightning body art, but he's not giving up on his idea to permanently shut down the lightning school. Young Seo said that the teacher has no need to worry because he only needs to get stronger and has no plans to pass on his knowledge. The teacher thanked young Sae and said that it was time for them to start learning the techniques. The first technique was the thunder fist, a lightning strike. The next technique is the floating cloud. Helps you move without making a sound or leaving a trail. The teacher practiced with the student until deep into the evening. Young Sae realized that it was still just the basics, but it couldn't be neglected. Thunder Fist will replace Yun Seo's basic dark arts technique of 1,000 palms spiritualized by the Azuras. The floating cloud technique is very similar to the Go Step technique. So Yun Seo will improve the old technique with the new one. The teacher said they were done for the day, and it was time for them to go home. Young Sae needs to get as much energy as possible. The next day had come. Because of such changes that the heavenly lightning body technique brings to the body, it would be difficult for young Seo to use chi energy before he had fully mastered the basics. For several years, young Sae had been training his physical strength and endurance. He had been waiting for a long time to be able to learn from Dugu. Unexpectedly, young Seo notices a roll of paper on his desk. In the letter, young Seo has an appointment to meet in 2 days in a slum in the northern part of the capital. After 3 months of not hearing from them, young Sae thought, the House Secret Society is finally calling for a meeting. Young Sae wondered why it was taking so long. He suggested that maybe they were having an internecine conflict. Young Sae thought that suddenly they were up to no good. After all, the method of exorcising demons was a pretty strong trump card they wanted to get. The guy would hardly be able to defend himself if they attacked right after exorcising the demons from their youngest student. After encountering a bloodthirsty ghost demon, young Seo realized that his experiences from his past life are not a wand for all occasions. For now, young Seo can't use force due to his training in the White Lightning body art, so he's practically powerless at this point. Young Sae decided to be cautious, since they were meeting in a deserted place, so they were obviously up to something. Young Sae arrived at the appointed place. Suddenly, 3 unknown men appeared behind him and said that they had been ordered to escort him. The guy agreed and was escorted straight down the hall. Then he was led into a room. Young Sae realized that it was a patient's room. There was a distinct smell of medicine. Entering the room, young Seo was greatly surprised. There was a huge number of warriors gathered around the sick boy. From the looks of it, young Seo realized that it was as if this squad had been attacked on the way there. Moreover, on the bier is the youngest disciple of the leader of the House Secret Society. He is only 15 years old, but no one would guess it from his appearance. Young Seo turned to the warriors and said that he had come here for the sake of driving the demons out of the boy. However, one of the warriors ordered young Seo not to move and said that they had been attacked on the road. Young Seo replied that he had guessed but didn't understand what claim they had against him. The warrior got angry and started yelling that those who attacked them knew who they were. Young Sae didn't understand. Did they really think he was the one who had set them on them? They replied to the guy that he was the only one who knew about the meeting. Young Sae replied that he didn't know when they were going out or which way they were going to go. The warrior replied to young Sae that they couldn't trust him, simply because he knew too much about their society. Young Sae asked that despite that, they still made the decision to invite him to the meeting. The guy advised them to think about how he could benefit from giving them away. The warrior replied that they were not fools. The warrior said that they were not fools and that young Seo himself had claimed that there was a cursed book written by a celestial demon, hence the conclusion that young Seo himself was related to or close to the sect. Young Sae realized that the ambush on the House Society warriors, the accusations of having ties with the demonic sect, everything was set up in such a way that it was impossible to suspect him. The culprit behind the House Society disciple becoming possessed was a heavenly demon. He must have used such a trick to make sure that his efforts were not wasted. A secret society rarely shares their secrets, in which case it means there is a traitor among their society. No one suspects that a demonic sect peeper has infiltrated the secret society. He's the one who rigged the cursed book to get into the right hands. The warrior told young Seo that if he was silent, then they were right. Young Sae swore that he was not a member of the demonic sect. The warrior replied that he wouldn't prove anything with words. Young Sae offered to talk to him after he healed the student. The warrior replied that he couldn't entrust the life of a fellow warrior to an enemy. He said he would take young Sae hostage and make a deal with the heavenly demon. Young Sae replied that he had agreed to save the student's life in exchange for information and told the warrior to shove his accusations to the back of his mind. Young Sae isn't going to put up with this nonsense. The warrior told young Sae that let him at least try to get close to the lady, they though injured, but they could handle him together. Young Seo said that he didn't want to get to that point and asked for someone to come out from under the ceiling. The warriors saw that it was an air stepping technique. They recognized the Supreme Master and did not know how to proceed. Dugu asked what to do with them. Young Sae replied that he was their customer, so he didn't need sacrifices, just disarming them would suffice. But young Seo clarified that he wanted this girl, and there was no way she should get hurt during the fight. The warriors set out to protect the young apprentice. However, none of them managed to make a single move. With the power of the wind, Master Dugu pressed their acupuncture points and paralyzed their bodies. Young Sae marveled at his teacher's incredible strength. In the blink of an eye, and without much effort, Dugu disarmed all the warriors. They stood motionless. One of the warriors began to say that they wouldn't just get away with it. If the leader of the secret society found out, he would send assassins. Young Sae replied that they were merely paralyzed, in order for him to fulfill part of his deal. The guy ordered the warrior to calm down and observe. Young Sae walked over to the girl's bunk and saw the book next to it. The Great Art of Divine Unification, that was the title of the book. These books were the cause of demonic possession of prominent Buddhist MURIM warriors. Young Sae remembered this book from his past life very well. The boy decided to start it. Fortunately, the girl's veins hadn't succumbed to reproduction yet. Young Sae knew that although it was dangerous to forcibly bring a patient to consciousness in this situation, he had no other way to communicate with her. The girl came to her senses. Young Sae knew that obsession couldn't be overcome without the patient's willingness. The guy helped her sit down. Young Sae asked if she could hear him, but the girl didn't respond in any way. Young Sae tells her that they have very little time, and if she wants to survive, she needs to move the energy along the path Young Sae will show her. The guy warned the girl that she was in no way to give up or pass out until they were done. Young Seo noticed that her chi energy center had shrunk to a pitiful size, and her chakras were constricted and full of murky energy. The guy realized that if something happened during the ritual, he would be branded an agent of the demonic sect for the rest of his life, and the secret society of How would declare war on him. Dugu asked if any help was needed from him. Young Sae replied that it was hard to explain, but only he could handle it. Young Sae asked the teacher not to worry because it wouldn't require any special effort on his part. This student was subjected to obsession because she practiced a transform technique for building up the potential of chi energy. The demonic sect leader wrote his martial arts manual so that the poisonous meaning of false practices would be hidden between the lines. Indeed, most masters suspected nothing wrong. Applying the practice of increasing chi potential from this book leads to the accumulation of poisonous energy. Eventually, this inner corruption opens the way for demonic forces, and the person becomes possessed. The method of exorcism is simple. It is necessary to show the possessed person the correct way to create chi energy, which only the heavenly demon and his disciples know. Yun Seo's performance was excellent. The girl was finally able to overcome her obsession. Incredible willpower. The teacher praised his student for his good result. Young Sae thanked the teacher in return for removing all the obstacles in his way. At this time, the girl's body was emitting a horrible stench. It was the poison coming out and leaving her body. Young Sae realized that she needed to be washed off so that the poison wouldn't be reabsorbed into her body. The boy started to undress the girl. The warrior saw this and became very angry. The teacher also told Young Sae that it was unseemly to undress a girl like that. Young Sae replied that this was not the time to make such remarks. Young Seo told the warrior and teacher that if the girl's body wasn't cleansed of the poison, the effect of the energy cleansing would only have half the effect. While washing, Young Sae involuntarily noticed some details on the girl's body. A mole on her collarbone, a scar on the side. Young Sae finished and said that possession is not cured in one go, so they will have to bring the girl to the place and time specified by him. The warrior asked a question. He asked Young Seo how he was related to the demon sect leader. Young Seo replied that he could definitely say that he was not a member of the demonic sect, but the guy told him that if he wanted to know how he knew the method of exorcising demons, let him remember that the house secret society knew better than anyone what secrets were worth. So he told the warrior and not to try to ask for such a valuable commodity for nothing. Young Seo added that when they see their leader to tell him that he is indebted to Young Seo after today's incident. On the way home, Young Sae started to thank the teacher for helping him. Otherwise, the guy would have gotten into trouble without the teacher. Young Sae was tormented by the thought that he had called for the teacher's help in such a situation, and whether he should now explain himself. The guy became worried that Dugu might suspect that he was an agent of a demonic sect. Or suddenly the teacher will think that his son's kidnapping and rescue was not an accident, but a skillfully acted performance. Suddenly, Dugu asked Young Seo what he was worried about. The boy replied that he just didn't understand why the teacher didn't ask him anything. The teacher didn't understand what Young Sae meant. The guy said it was logical to ask what he had to do with the leader of the demonic sect. The teacher then turned to Young Seo and asked him with a stern look if he was an adept of the demonic sect. Young Sae replied that of course not. The teacher then asked if Young Seo had tried to gain his trust by deception. Young Seo denied it. Then the teacher said there was no problem and that he trusted him and believed him because he had heard, seen, and felt it himself. Young Sae was simply shocked at the words he heard. The teacher told him to stop staring like that and go get something to eat. Young Sae realized that he had never met anyone like his teacher before. He wondered what he could tell him about his return to the past. Young Sae promised himself that one day he would tell his teacher everything about his past from his birth, without any secrecy or glossing over the details. 2 years had passed since then. Young Sae was practicing with his teacher as usual and learning new boundaries. The teacher told Young Seo that he had already taught him the basics of the White Lightning body art, so he could further build up chi potential on his own. Young Seo was very happy to hear this news. because the day he had been waiting for 2 years had arrived. The teacher told young Seo that in order to take the elixir and fully assimilate the energy, one must concentrate carefully. Young Sae immediately put the elixir in his mouth. The teacher asked how he felt. Young Sae realized that it was a small circle elixir and that it gave amazing energy. In his past life, young Seo had taken many elixirs and knew that it was easy. The main thing was to make sure no one got in the way. The boy was calm because he was under his teacher's protection and was sure he wouldn't shed a drop of energy. Young Seo's veins endured the powerful surge of energy from the small circle elixir. This was the consequence of practicing the white lightning body art. Teacher noticed that young Seo wanted to roll the elixir energy from the wheel of great bliss to the wheel of preserving bliss. Teacher Dugu was surprised at what he saw. Young Seo's chi energy was pouring over the edge, a breathtaking sight. Young Sae was filled with energy, came to his senses, and used the lightning fist technique. The teacher was very impressed. Now young Sae knew that using powerful techniques did not threaten him with damage to his internal organs. Young Sae thanked the teacher for guarding him. The teacher suggested that he visit the Tang clan when he finished absorbing the elixir energy. Young Sae asked why it was necessary, and the teacher said he would explain later. Young Sae was a little nervous with anticipation. The guy went home and pondered along the way, thinking that he needed to absorb half of the 6th decimal circle of chi energy. However, young Sae noticed that someone was following him and was surprised how he didn't see it before. This person is so skilled at stealth that young Seo wouldn't have even noticed him if it wasn't for the recent increase in chi energy. Young Sae put up his sword and saw the girl in front of him. He asked who she was. The girl replied that she didn't think young Sae would smell her presence. Young Sae told the girl that if she didn't introduce herself right away, he would consider her to have bad intentions. The girl replied that she was saddened by the fact that young Seo didn't recognize her. The guy was surprised that they might know each other. The girl reminded the guy that she was the one who had asked to be addressed informally, and that she thought she and he were close to each other. Young Sae had even seen her naked. Young Sae couldn't believe what he heard. It was really her. And then he noticed a mole on the girl's collarbone. The girl took off her mask and introduced herself. Young Sae said he was happy to see her well and asked what brought her to him. The girl replied that she was driven by a sense of gratitude, for if it wasn't for him, the girl would have died and the house society would have suffered greatly as well. Young Sae told her that somehow the feeling of gratitude had taken a long time to mature in her. There hadn't been a message or a letter in a whole year. The girl apologized and said it was all about the long road to recovery and accepting herself. Young Sae said that the house secret society had hardly sent her to him just to say thank you. He demanded to know why she had come. The girl then said that she brought young Seo a pretty good offer and promised that he wouldn't regret his time. The girl said that they had left a very bad impression of her, and the fact was that the house society had stopped trusting her. They hide from the girl and only get in touch when they really need her. Young Seo asked so why would he trust her. The girl replied that if he was worried about that incident 2 years ago, she was apologizing, and that she couldn't write to young Seo just because she had her reasons. The boyfriend said that she had many ways to contact him and not just through letters. The girl replied that the secret house society has agents everywhere, and she was trying to contact young Sae. However, they were hindered by teacher Duga. The girl sent people to young Sae to deliver words of gratitude, apologies, and gifts, but the teacher wouldn't let young Sae near him. He told them that this was a very important learning period for his student, and they shouldn't try to contact him. The girl also added that the teacher had only given the okay to meet with young Seo yesterday. Young Sae realized that the teacher was protecting him from the slightest danger until he could take the elixir. Young Sae replied that there seemed to be a misunderstanding. The girl was glad that everything had been cleared up and now she could pass on the proposal from the house society. The girl said they wanted young Seo to be their friend and suggested they meet in 2 days in the evening at the House of Heavenly Bliss. The girl said that a famous courtesan called the Maiden of Heavenly Bliss works there and asked if young Sae wanted her to attend. Young Seo replied that he wasn't interested. The girl laughed and said he was boring. Young Seo noticed that despite being sick for a long time and skipping training, the girl has amazing abilities. Now young Sae understood why the secret house society valued its youngest disciple so much and decided to see what the society wanted from him. 2 days later, young SEO came to the House of Heavenly Bliss to find out what the secret house society had prepared for him. Young SAE walked inside and was surprised that the establishment was quite large and crowded for a secret house society. A girl came up to the guy and said she would escort him out. She introduced herself by the name of An. The surrounding people were shocked that the goddess of the House of Heavenly Bliss herself had come down to the first floor. Young SAE didn't realize it. After all, he had said that he wouldn't need her and her presence didn't matter. An asked the guy that maybe he's uncomfortable with her accompanying him. Yun Seo replied, "Honestly, that's how the network is." Yun Seo said that he didn't want to draw unnecessary attention to himself, so he wished someone else had conducted it. Young SAE thought that Un might be doing him a favor as a thank you, but he didn't need the extra attention. Young SAE realized that if his name became a household name, his teacher would be in trouble. If young SAE had known this was going to happen, he would have worn a mask or a bamboo hat. The boy was finally escorted to his room. Young SAE entered the room and was greeted by a girl again and asked to sit down. The guy didn't like it. After all, he said he didn't need those girls. The girl told young SAE that before they started their conversation, they needed to introduce themselves to each other properly. She said her name, Jong. The girl thanked young SAE for saving her life and took off her mask. Then the boy recognized the young student of the leader of the House Secret Society. Young Seo asked if it was okay for them to take off their veils. The girl replied that isn't it polite to remove the veil after introductions. Jong added that besides, young Seo has seen her face so many times already, and the veil is unnecessary now. Young Seo said that all this misplaced respectful speech sounds creepy. The girl laughed and said she thought so too. Yun asked her that can members of society reveal their identities so easily. Just like 2 days ago, she also revealed her face. The girl confirmed and said that she could not reveal any information to him without the leader's consent. Jong added that she still didn't just show her face like that. She put her whole heart into that makeup after all. Young Seo replied that all the jokes were enough. The girl called him a nerd and said that naturally the leader gave her permission. He wants to repay the guy. Then young Seo asked what kind of reward he would get. Jong replied that he was too impatient. The girl gathered her courage and informed young SAE that she was officially his personal assistant from now on. Young SAE looked at her strangely and asked if that was it. The girl didn't like that reaction. The girl indignantly began to say that mere mortals could rarely afford an assistant, and that now he could afford all the information he needed without needing to ferret out the house society, and added that all information would come directly from the top of society. Jong said that young SAE could have pretended to be happy. After all, the leader decided to treat him like a special client, even though many people were against it. Yun Seo replied that there would be less to worry about now, but asked why she was the assistant if there weren't other people. Chan replied that they already knew each other, after all, and the other person would have to get to know him all over again, and added that they were so close to each other. Yun Seo was outraged and said that he didn't even touch her with few exceptions. Chan said that if he is uncomfortable and thinks she is following him, he can decline her services at any time and she will talk to the leader at another reward. Young SAE replies that he doesn't care at all. In fact, the guy has no reason to refuse, especially since the information from the society is very valuable. Young SAE knew that he would be able to find out what had changed since his past life, and what he himself had yet to find out. In addition, he would be able to control all the information himself. However, young SEO didn't know if the leader had decided to tie up his student as a reward, or if he had ulterior motives. Jong asked if it would be enough to pay the debt. Young SAE confirmed that it would be. The girl said she would be happy to serve him. It had been 20 days since Jong had met with the leader. Young SAE hadn't heard anything from her since then. Young SAE thought that maybe the leader had changed his mind. After all, it's very hard to predict his thoughts, so it's entirely possible. While young Seo was thinking about his own thoughts, he unwittingly witnessed someone calling one of the students to have lunch on the weekend. Each of the students was losing their minds to the girl and saying what a beauty she was. However, one of the girls was clearly displeased because this new girl was already the second highest achieving student. Young SAE wondered where the new student had drawn from and noticed that she was walking in his direction. The girl started running towards the guy and yelling, "Young Seo's brother." Then young SAE realized it was Jong, but he didn't understand why she had come. After everyone had dispersed, Jong told young Seo that the teacher allowed her to be here after she said she became his assistant. Jong started calling in Seo her brother, but the guy asked her not to call him that because she doesn't officially go to school there. Seo asked her to leave because he needs to practice and doesn't have time. Chan offered to have him spar with an experienced fighter like her in return. Seo realized that the girl was trying to find out what level her fighting prowess was at. The guy even liked it. He hadn't encountered opponents strong enough since his battle with the bloodthirsty ghost demon. Seo just wanted to check how much his skills had improved, and how good the skills of the apprentice of the house society leader's apprentice were. Seo motioned for the girl to start. Jong didn't mind at all, and she was even amused by it. As the fight began, Seo was surprised by the girl's skills. She was very quick to repel all the guy's attacks. Jong was sure that there was no one stronger than her among her peers. However, she didn't understand why she couldn't even hit Seo with her sword. Seo noticed that Jong was already exhausted, and mockingly told the girl that he would fight as hard as he could now. Jong became very angry from what she heard and gained new strength. Seo used the Moon Shadow Sword Strike. Jong was shocked. Her sword broke. The girl didn't know how to react. Seo reminded her that he was the same age as her. It seemed to Jong that she had no equal among her peers. The girl's pride was shattered. Seo told her that vain people die first in battle. Jong asked her not to say such cruel things. The girl asked if Seo recognizes that he has worthy rivals among his peers. The boy said he didn't. Seo knew that the course of a real fight could not be predicted, but there was no way he would lose. Even in his former life, he had no peer among his peers. He lived in a world where you either kill or be killed. Therefore, he had no right to lose to other martial artists. Jong told Seo that if he was confident in his abilities, why not enter the Flaming Phoenix competition? Seo thought about the girl's words, and it was as if he had fallen into thought for a few minutes. He didn't even respond to the girl's questions. After that, Seo said that he had a training session and he had to go now. The girl got angry and asked him if their training wasn't enough for him. A few days later, Seo was just on his way to have lunch with his teacher, but Jong followed him again. The girl told Seo that this was a great opportunity for her to get to know the teacher's personality better. After all, Seo didn't want to tell her anything. The guy didn't expect anything else from a member of the house society. The girl replied to the guy that why don't he tell him everything himself? She wondered why such a strong warrior was working with an ordinary teacher. Seo replied that he couldn't tell her. Jong didn't understand why the two of them had so many secrets. Master Dugu moved out as soon as his son came home. The heavenly king of evil is now constantly on the lookout for teacher Dugu. That's why there is no place safer than Chongseong Mountain. They finally arrived at the teacher's house. Mrs. Moon had prepared an incredible dinner. Jong kept praising and saying she hadn't eaten anything tastier. Suddenly, Dugu got up from the table. Seo asked where he was going. The teacher said that the food needed the right alcohol to go with it. Seo said that he would keep the teacher company and didn't mind going for a walk at all. The teacher did not object. The guy asked Doug why he, a man who doesn't drink alcohol, suddenly decided to bring it. Teacher Dugu responded that they have not completely given up alcohol, but simply drink in smaller quantities. Seo realized that the teacher seemed to feel guilty towards his family because of the incident with his son. Dugu said that his wife had given up a lot for him. He wanted to give her a rich life, but not everything in this world happens the way he wanted it to. No matter how strong a warrior Dugu is, he's still a human being. Even while he's with his family, he can't protect her from all the demon warriors. For the safety of his family, Dugu has literally locked them away on Mt. Jongseong. But even there, he doesn't feel safe as he diligently trains his son until the heavenly evil king is killed, or until Dugu completely heals his body. He won't be able to live a single day without fear. Teacher Dugu came out of the barn and said that this alcohol was from the province. And then Seo reminded the teacher that he hadn't given him anything for his housewarming gift yet either. The teacher was surprised and said that they had moved a long time ago, and why Seo remembered it and what he was up to. Seo promised that he would enjoy it. They returned to the table, had a pleasant time, and went home. Jong met with Seo. The guy asked Jong to give a message to the leader of the trade organization. Jong asked if this was the organization that had expanded a lot recently. Seo confirmed and said that the payment would be information. Jong was surprised and asked what the information was. Seo said that the eldest son of the leader of the trade organization was possessed by a spirit during training. Jong couldn't believe what she heard, but she was certain that a demonic sect was involved. Seo asked that she tell him to find him if he wanted to save his son. Jong asked young Seo how he knew that the son of the leader of the trade organization was the victim of an evil spirit. Young Seo replied that she didn't really want the information for free. Jong said that the trade organization was in Zhejiang province. It would be a long journey, and asked young Seo to wait for her. Young Seo thanked and asked that they take their martial arts books with them. The YN trade organization is soon to become one of the most powerful. In a past life, the heavenly evil king healed the son of the head of YN and then took over the entire organization. And this time, young Seo decided that he would heal his son and make the trade organization his own. The evil spirit that afflicted the son of the head of the trade organization, called the scarlet-colored demon, and comes from fire powered by the power of yang energy. This spirit can only be defeated by using a divine yin energy attack. This would be a good gift for a master. Suddenly, Jong appeared behind young Seo's back. She started yelling that the goddess had been kidnapped. Young Seo asked if the goddess was at the home of heavenly bliss. The guy also asked why the house secret society cared. Then Jong revealed that she was also a member of the secret society. Young Sae didn't understand why Jong was asking for his help and not another member of society. The girl replied that she didn't have time to wait for the How fighters to be sent. The guy told Chan that since she was one of the best students, she couldn't do it on her own. The girl explained that if she acted alone, she would have less of a chance. Young Seo realized that if Jong was asking for help in a hurry, then this goddess is a special person in the house society. The boy agreed to help. On the way, Chan revealed that the kidnapper was one of the province's most famous martial artists, nicknamed Poison Sword, and that Poison Sword had been courting the goddess for quite some time. Young Sae didn't understand how such a famous warrior openly kidnapped a person. Chan told me that all the warriors from that province pretend to be noble, but behind everyone's back they do terrible things. Also, the girl said that maybe someone else wanted to harm the house society too. Young Sae asked who it could be. Chong told me that there is a man who defeated the master of the Plum Blossom Sword, a warrior of transcendent level. He wields his sword with the speed and precision of a snake. His strength is only comparable to that of a demon. There aren't many good warriors in house society, except for those close to power. Therefore, it would be quite difficult to deal with such a warrior. Chong said that the first thing to do was to rescue the kidnapped people and work together. The girl gave young Seo a signal fire and said that if either of them detected them first, set that on fire, and then they would go on the attack together. Young Sae asked if Jong would leave him without payment. The girl said not to worry about it, and that she would pay him back. Then young Seo asked the girl for a mask if she had an extra one since he didn't want to stand out. The girl said she did and handed over the mask, saying it could be counted as the first indirect kiss. Young Seo replied that it was no big deal, and that he would put the mask on the other side and throw it away after using it. The goddess of the heavenly bliss house couldn't feel her body below her neck. She realized that the kidnapper had cast a blood curse. The girl woke up and the poison sword noticed it. The goddess told him that he would regret what he had done and that warriors would soon come there. Poison Sword started laughing and said that it was silly. Why would a warrior save a courtesan? He also added that he had prepared himself. Poison Sword said that it was better for the girl to go towards him, since all the hidden paths there were already under good defense. He also added that it was better for her to turn herself in on her own since he was going to be her husband. Suddenly, young Seo entered the room, or rather he punched out the wall with his fist. Poison Sword wondered how he did it without using his sword. Poison Sword realized that this was not just an ordinary warrior and asked if he had come to save the girl. Young Seo started yelling that did the old man try to woo the young girl, and then decided to kidnap her because she rejected him. Young Seo said that this ugly thing needs to be fixed. The Poison Sword started laughing and said that young Sae really wanted to die. Poison Sword said that young Sae reminded him of a certain sucker who had pounced on his sword and then begged on his knees for mercy. The fight began and the confidence of the Poison Sword was already gone. Young Sae was able to repel every blow. Young Seo in turn noticed that the Poison Sword is indeed as strong and fast as they say. Young Seo knew that such martial skill was not taught even in prestigious schools and ancient scrolls and libraries. This sword had been tempered in battles, and the art had been perfected by battles. But young Sae decided that since this was the case, it was the perfect opportunity to use the White Lightning attack. Poison Sword noticed that young Seo was attacking quickly even without illusions, and if he delayed even a little, he would part his head. Young Seo told the Poison Sword that he must have reached the peak and abandoned his training, since he couldn't even repel such a childish attack. This infuriated the Poison Sword, and it launched an attack. Young Sae saw that he had managed to piss off his opponent in just a couple of seconds, and decided to call it a day. Young Seo mocked the Poison Sword. He didn't understand how a society elder was using a cheap trap attack. Did this technique really work against the Plum Blossom Sword? However, young Sae knew that if he didn't make it in time, he would be finished. The Poison Sword lay defeated on the ground. Suddenly, young Sae noticed some interesting thing sticking out of his pocket. Young Sae took out a plaque and realized that the emblem of an elite evil spirit squad. The guy didn't understand why the other squad's elder was carrying it around. Then young Seo decided to ask the Poison Sword what it was, where he got it from, and if he knew its meaning. Poison Sword said he wouldn't tell him anything. Then young Seo said he would forcefully make him tell him. Young Sae warned that he might slightly miscalculate his strength. He also asked where the Poison Sword came from. Poison Sword couldn't withstand the pressure and revealed that he had taken it to the leader of the Sap clan. Young Seo asked what kind of clan it was. Sword replied that this clan was gaining more and more influence in Sichuan. Guy realized that the clan whose power was growing was connected to the evil spirit squad. Guy asked the Sword how the clan leader was connected to the evil spirit squad. Poison Sword replied to the guy that he didn't know anything, and that he had only helped him with a couple tasks. Then young Seo asked if the clan was actually a demonic sect posing as a Buddhist sect. Poison Sword replied that it probably wasn't, as the leader didn't treat this squad well. Young Seo said that it means they have a bad relationship. However, the Sword replied that it's not bad and they're just using each other. Poison Sword said that he didn't know everything, but that trade between the two was going on for quite large sums. But their ties were cut off after the Buddhist faction absorbed one demon unit. Young Sae didn't understand what this demon had forgotten in Sichuan. Unexpectedly, Jong appeared and said that she told him to give a signal when he found the mecha. Young Sae replied that he didn't have time for that since the situation was quite dangerous. Chan asked him to be honest and admit that he hadn't signaled her on purpose. Young Seo replied that everything ended up going well in the end, and since they had saved the goddess, he would go. The goddess thanked young Sae for saving her. The guy replied that it was a normal transaction, and the house society would return the favor. Jong couldn't believe that young Seo could handle the Poison Sword alone and thought he was a monster. Young Seo was pondering about the connection between the Suk clan and the ghost demon. He didn't know about it even in his past life. The boy decided to find out about everything, but he didn't know if he could get the information out of the leader of the Suk clan. Young Sae has arrived at the clan's location. There is a pact between the clan and the bloodthirsty demon. However, it was broken when the ghost demon fell into the hands of the Qingchengshan faction. Consequently, the money left over after the deal broke is now with the Soka clan. The guards stood at the entrance to the clan's establishment. It was already time for the changing of the guard, but their replacements hadn't come up yet. They thought maybe they had decided to smoke before going out. One of the guards began to say that even during the state of emergency, these tobacco addicts had gotten naked. Unexpectedly, young Seo appeared behind their backs and eliminated this obstacle in his path. Young Seo knew that he wasn't that good at stealth, and if he tried to invade during the state of emergency and made a mistake, he would have to fight the entire clan. The guy decided to disguise himself and go after the clan leader before anyone discovered the guards in the blackout. Young Sae saw that the state of emergency had made a commotion, and it was unlikely that they had put it in because the goddess had been kidnapped by a poisonous snake. The boy didn't understand what else this clan was involved in. He approached one of the buildings, and judging by the way they were guarding it, the leader must be there. Young Sae decided to check it out and went straight to the guards. They stopped the guy, and he said that he urgently needed to meet the leader. The guards asked what was the matter, and young Sae said that a poisonous snake had been caught. Hearing this, the guards decided to urgently inform the leader. Young Sae thought it was quite easier than he thought, and then the clan's sword master appeared in front of him. The master asked young Seo who caught the poison sword. Without thinking long, Young Sae replied that it was the House Society. Then the master said that there was someone in the House Society who could defeat the poisonous snake. Young Sae replied that he had heard that a disciple of the House Society had helped them. Master said that if it was a disciple of the leader of the House Society, it was possible. Young Sae wanted to add that he had more to say. But before he could say a word, the master replied that the clan's sword squad was following the poisonous serpent. Master menacingly asked Young Sae who he was and how he knew all this. He threatened to tell only the truth. Young Sae hoped that everything would go smoothly. But of course things didn't go as planned. Young Sae drew his sword. The master thought that the boy couldn't wait to die. Young Sae knew that, of course, the clan's sword master had tremendous strength. Seeing the use of Young Seo's sword energy, the opponent ordered the guards to escort the master to safety and line up. Young Seo was surprised that they could only be expected to have a pathetic formation that would clearly not help them. Young Sae saw that they wanted to exhaust him with their attacks and movements, but he couldn't just fend off their blows. The guy knew that if he procrastinated, the other clan warriors would soon arrive here as well. Then he decided to spend a lot of chi energy at once. At this time, the clan leader was nearby. He was angry at the poisoned sword as he told him not to touch the goddess because the House of Heavenly Bliss controlled the House Society. The leader was displeased with so many troubles. After all, they had no shortage of ghost demon that gave away their Kingchengtian faction. The leader assumed that now the House Society would think that he had instigated the sword to kidnap the goddess. At this time, the leader's guards reminded them that they needed to flee while the warriors distracted the brigand. Unexpectedly, young Seo appeared. The guards shouted to the leader not to be afraid and that they could handle young Seo. The leader tried to stop the guards, but it was too late. However, he didn't expect young Sae to deal with them so quickly. And then the leader fell to his knees and began to say that they had not kidnapped the goddess, and that the poisoned sword itself had done it all. However, young Seo said that he had a lot of questions for him about the evil spirit squad, the ghost demon. The guy took out a plaque and said that he took this from the poisonous serpent, and added that the poisonous serpent said it belonged to the leader of the Sok clan. Seeing this, the leader bounced back. He wondered how the guy managed to take away the sign. Young Sae reminded him that if he did anything stupid, he would be finished. The leader said there was no nonsense, and he just wanted to get rid of anything that wouldn't be useful during their conversation. Young Seo chained the leader and began to interrogate him. He asked the leader what his connection to the ghost demon was. The leader didn't want to talk, so young Sae drew his sword. Then the leader told him that they had made a deal with him. The ghost demon wanted to increase his fortune. The leader asked him if he wanted to start his own business as he asked him to give him money. Young Sae began to ponder that whether the crazy old man had stolen the money he had gotten from the leader and spent it on military purposes. Young Sae started yelling at the leader that he had no idea what the demon needed the money for. The leader replied that he had no choice. Indeed, young Sae knew that if the leader refused the demon would destroy him. At that time, young Seo told the leader that if he received an offer from the Jongxian faction, it was necessary to say that he would do anything. The leader began to beg for mercy. Young Sae replied that he had his own principles and had not come to punish the clan leader. Young Seo also added that he's someone who has already dealt with a squad of evil spirits and doesn't consider them to be a particular threat. Also, young Seo said that the ghost demon is already in the hands of the Buddhist factions, but the troubles from it are not over yet. Young Sae took away the ledger of the trade with the demon. He said that he would keep their deal a secret, but in return, he would return all the money the ghost demon made. The guy knew that no one would know what sums the ghost demon was receiving unless the clan leader spoke up. Young Sae decided to empty their treasury first. Suddenly, the leader rose from his knees and swore to be loyal to Young Sae didn't understand why he suddenly did. The leader said that he had always dreamed of creating a group of dedicated warriors in his clan, but he couldn't defeat the evil spirit squad and lost. And now the leader repents and wants to follow only a noble warrior like Young Seo from now on. The boy didn't realize what he was carrying and what a noble warrior he was. The leader began to praise him that he was a warrior who had defeated the ghost demon with his strength. A warrior with a capital letter who asks nothing in return except for a trace of the demon's ghost. The leader continued. The leader said that he would now follow the noble warrior's footsteps, Young Sae ordered him to stop all this immediately. Then the leader offered him to become the yeoman of their clan. Every month, the clan would pay young Seo for his valor, and their soldiers would be at his disposal. Young Seo replied that if the leader really wants it, he won't say no, but he's not going to stay in that place. The leader didn't understand, since he could have had so much power there. Young Sae replied that today's conversation would remain between them and asked him to cover all traces. After a few days, young Sae was no longer worried about money, all because of the misunderstanding that happened between him and the leader of the Suk clan. Now he had enough money to carry out his next plan. Suddenly, Jong walked in and asked what he was doing so hard. Jong gave young Seo what he asked for, and said that a gentleman from the Wyong Trade Organization was waiting for him. In the book Yun Seo handed over, he read about the art of the safflower flower. Fortunately, it was no different from the technique in young Sae's memories. This technique is based on the exchange of chi energy. By learning it, you can get rid of the leakage of internal energy into the environment. Jong asked if young Sae understood what it said. The guy replied that he did, and told them to go to the guest house. Jong didn't even have time to read anything there. Young Seo is as secretive and obscure as ever. Young Seo headed towards the head of the YN Trade Organization. The guy was even a little nervous before the meeting. After all, this man would become one of the most influential and wealthy merchants of the nearby plains in the future. Yun Seo immediately said that he's not a healer, but he sure knows how to cure his sick son. The head replied that it didn't matter who young Sae was. The important thing was that he knew how to do it. The head asked him to tell him what he needed to do right now. Young Sae went to the room of the sick man. The head at this time couldn't find a place to be. He didn't think it would take so long. Unexpectedly, young Seo came out and said that the treatment was successful and the boy could get out of bed in 15 days. The head felt really relieved. He was very grateful to young Sae and said that he would definitely repay him. But before moving on to payment, the head invited young Sae to dinner. The head asked the guy why someone as talented as him decided to cure his son. Yun Seo replied that it's simple because his help isn't needed by those who are only looking for profit. In the life of a man on the scale of the big world, not some small thing. In addition, the head was very worried about his son. The head almost cried and said that if it wasn't for young Seo, he would have just lost his son. Yun Seo replied that he did what he had to do. The head said that he would do anything in gratitude, and young Sae could ask for anything he wanted. Young Sae said that he had something. The head replied that no matter how big the amount was, he didn't feel sorry for anything. Suddenly, young Sae said he needed spices and as many as possible. This shocked the head and Jong. The head asked the guy why he wanted the spice. Young Sae replied that he would call it an investment for his old age. Young Seo knew that next fall, the coastal areas of Jujong Wyong Trade Organization will be attacked by Japanese pirates, causing trade to suffer greatly. This will cause the price of spices to skyrocket. These spices made YN one of the 10 most influential trade organizations. And young Seo decided that he was the one who would get rich from it, not the heavenly Dion. The head replied that it wasn't difficult for him at all, but he thought young Sae would ask for a monetary reward. However, Yun Seo said that he still hasn't cured his son yet, so there's no rush for the reward. Young Seo realized that he couldn't give up the chicken that lays the golden eggs right now. The guy decided that he would take a long time to build a relationship with him to get what he needed. Then the head reached out his hand to young Seo and gave him the thing. Young Sae asked what it was. The head said it was a token of their organization's special important customers. The head told him that only with this sign would he be able to deal with their merchants. Young Sae asked if he was worthy of such a valuable item. The head replied that he should at least repay him with something, and added that it was his investment too, in young Sae. The leader of the Wyong Trade Organization invited young Seo to the organization's main headquarters and returned to Jujong. Young Sae knew that the riches he would acquire after the spice prices skyrocketed would help him on his way to becoming one of the elders of the martial Icus world. The guy needs the help of a trade organization to do that, and the sign will start it. In a past life, the cult leader should have gotten it. Young Sae decided that this would upset him. Young Seo has the House Society and even the trade organization on his side. The sect leader will obviously notice this change. The guy decides that he needs to lay low for a while. Suddenly, there's a blow behind young Sae's back. Young Seo started to say that he called him out saying he had a conversation and now attacking him. I mean, the attack could really hurt the guy. It turned out to be Dugu's teacher. He said that if he really attacked him, young Sae wouldn't be able to repel the blow so easily. Teacher hoped that young Seo had curbed the heavenly lightning body art. But the guy replied that he hadn't completely, and now he could only use it when absolutely necessary. The teacher suggested the guy try breathing chi energy, then young Seo would be able to feel what level he was at. Jong decided to give it a try. He only opened the breath of internal energy, but his whole body felt from negative energy. The teacher explained that there was nothing to be surprised about, as white lightning is a powerful weapon in itself, but it can also act as a defense. This is the god of lightning. Young Sae was surprised. The teacher explained that you could call it the white lightning stage. When you fully master the art and understand how to use it, young Seo was able to get rid of all the negative energy because of this, and realized that thanks to the white lightning, it was possible to do something like this. The teacher said that not everyone could do it. Many people couldn't reach the lightning god stage. Young Sae wondered if it wasn't just the body reaching a new level. Dugu explained that the body could become stronger through the white lightning art, but it couldn't compare to the body improvements of martial artists. Young Seo realized that considering the power of the Fist King in his past life, it sounded like the truth. At this rate, young Sae would quickly regain his strength from his past life. Teacher Dugu said that since young Sae had already learned the basics of this technique, they should already go. Young Sae didn't understand where they should go. The teacher recalled that he had said they would go to the same place as soon as young Sae mastered the basics. The teacher said that this was the place of the clan Dan. Then young Sae remembered that Dugu had actually promised it. Clan Tan is the great clan of MURIM, the first of the 5 great clans. The abode of martial arts obsessives, feared by all of MURIM. They were also good at poisons, hidden weapons, and other strange devices. Young Sae knew that if he crossed them, he wouldn't be able to just die. However, even though the clan intimidated the others, their hostility seemed excessive to young Sae. The teacher told the guy to ignore them because they are closed in on themselves and don't like to show emotion. The Tang clan that young Seo had known in his time was full of narrow-minded cowards, so the teacher's words surprised him. The teacher was warmly greeted by a girl and said that they were happy to see him. Dugu introduced young Sae as his student. Young Sae said that he was happy to meet her. The girl replied that she had wanted to meet him for a long time and called herself by the name Tang. Young Sae was interested in the girl's name. According to the house society's information about the ghost demon, he was not related to this family. The Tan clan leader and the Tan girl often contact each other. Young Sae realized that she is the daughter of the Tan leader who used to keep in touch with the teacher, but Tang said she wanted to meet young Sae. The guy didn't understand how she knew him. Unlike the other clan warriors, she seemed friendly. The girl told them that the leader was already waiting for them. Young Sae decided that no matter what, he wouldn't let his guard down. Teacher and young Sae walked in. The leader said that it had been a long time since they had seen each other. Young Seo realized that it was the future Poison King. When young Sae saw him on the battlefield, he didn't feel any negative energy from him, and if young Sae didn't know him, would have thought he was a Buddhist warrior. However, young Sae realized that they were the future king of strength and the king of poison. It was strange to see the monsters from their past lives together now. Teacher Dugu told the clan leader that he had come to him with a request. The leader replied that he would listen carefully. Dugu pronounced that he knew his request was too big, but it was very necessary for his student. The teacher asked to give him the elixir of 1,000 poisons. Young Sae was shocked by what he heard. Young Sae knew that it was the secret elixir of the Tan family. It's unbelievable that a teacher would ask to give such a thing as a gift. The leader started laughing loudly and said that without his supervision, the student had become a complete idiot. But then the leader agreed and said he would give Doug what he needed. The teacher thanked him and promised to repay the favor. Young Sae couldn't believe this was happening. The clan leader said that he couldn't say no to someone who saved his daughter's life. Young Sae didn't know what they were talking about, but if the teacher had saved the clan head's daughter, it made sense to him why he agreed. The leader reminded that to take the elixir, a warrior must reach peak level, and the skills must be extraordinary. The leader asked young Seo how old he was. The guy replied that he turned 17 recently. The leader was surprised that he and his daughter are only 2 years apart, and said it was incredible to peak at such an age. With one wave of his hand, the clan leader directed the poisonous snakes towards young Seo. That's how he decided to test the boy. The leader was greatly surprised by young Seo's skills and asked his daughter to guide the guests to the best apothecary. The girl led them to the right place and told them that only Tan family members could visit this apothecary, so she would go alone. The girl left. Young Seo decided to take the opportunity and asked the teacher why he needed the elixir. The teacher told him not to blabber to him because it was all for his own betterment and well-being. Young Sae started yelling that it was poison and it was toxic. If you hurry up and take it, you could die. The teacher began to laugh and told young Seo not to worry because he had reached the necessary level, so he would be able to get this poison out of him. Young Sae exhaled. The teacher said that of course he would have to endure the pain and side effects. Suddenly, Tang interrupted them and said that she had brought the elixir. The girl told young Sae that he had to come for the elixir every 2 weeks for 2 years. The girl also added that she had a request for Teacher Duck. The teacher agreed to listen. The girl said that she wanted to fight young Seo. Suddenly, young Sae felt a strange energy from her. The boy sensed the poison. To enhance his fighting prowess, the use of poison is a secret of the Tan family that only family members know. However, it is rare to find women who use this technique, as the poison robs them of the ability to have children. Young Sae realized that that glint in her eyes was the result of using poison, and said that he didn't want to fight her. The girl asked what the reason for the refusal was. Young Sae replied that if she defeated him, she wouldn't get anything. All the poisonous people young Seo met in his past life were crazy. The very idea of using poison to increase strength seemed strange. Young Sae didn't know how she became poisonous, but he knew she would lose her mind too. And then he thought that there was nothing wrong with sparring with the daughter of the leader of the Tang clan. Young Seo suggested that the girl put up bets to gamble. The girl replied that she had just the right amount to bet. The guy said he had enough elixir. Tan said he would definitely like it, and she would give it to him if he managed to pull off a victory. Young Sae realized that they were about on the same level now. He thought about giving up the prize, no matter what it was. But then he saw something in the girl's hands. Gu Jia had made 5 swords in the last years of his life, and this was one of them. The prize was too valuable to give up. The master of the past generation who made the best swords in history, the best blacksmith in Zhengzhou, Gu Jia. He put all his soul into making the 5 swords and then died. Each sword has a different name: Heavenly Palace, Victory or Death, King of the Seas, Pure Word, and the Path of Courage that was now in the hands of the daughter of the Tang clan leader. Young Sae knew that for any warrior, this sword was such a valuable weapon that it was worth risking one's life for. Young Seo asked the girl if she was allowed to make such a bet. The girl replied that she wouldn't have bet that sword if he hadn't agreed to spar. Young Sae asked if there was no other reason. Tang said that she was asking him to do it because he was her benefactor's disciple. Young Sae didn't understand what that had to do with it. The girl explained that her benefactor's apprentice must be very strong. Young Sae wondered if she just wanted to beat him, and it seems she won't answer his questions anymore. The guy tells Tan that's all well and good, but he doesn't have anything to level the playing field with the sword. The girl replied that it didn't have to be a thing. Tan approached Doug and asked if she could win. Would the teacher honor her request? Master Dugu had agreed to such a strange bet. Young Sae didn't understand why exactly Master Dugu. Tang told young Seo that he needs more time to think things over. But the guy refused and said that if his teacher agrees, he accepts the challenge. Young Sae didn't know what the girl's motivation was, but he was more than sure that there was no way she would give up. However, it didn't matter as there was a sword at stake that young Sae really wanted to get his hands on. Young Seo realized that his opponent was a poisonous person. Therefore, he needs to do his best to avoid being poisoned. The battle has begun. The fight was exciting. The girl managed to scratch the guy, and he thought it might be poison. However, it appeared that the white lightning art should protect against poison. Young Sae was calm. Not that young Seo had agreed to the fight to appreciate her skills. The guy had noticed that she certainly fought very hard. Therefore, young Seo had no choice but to apply the 21st stage of the waning moon. Young Sae asked the girl why she was fighting so desperately, and asked for an answer immediately. Unexpectedly, the girl took out a hairpin from her hair. It was a soul butterfly. It is used for dark stealth attacks of the Tan family. The girl went on the attack. If young Sae didn't make it in time, he would be in big trouble. Tang had poisoned him with poison. Young Sae realized that he had to act sooner rather than later to avoid losing his mind. The girl was shocked and knew she needed to finish the fight before he expelled all the poison from himself. Young Seo gathered his strength and inflicted the 23rd stage of the water moon. He was victorious. Master proclaimed him the winner. Young Sae realized that they were on par, but if it wasn't for the white lightning that he used to heal himself from the poison, he might not have won. The guy approached the girl and asked if she was okay. He also said that he thought Tan had only asked for sparring to show off her pride. Then he asked the girl what she was hiding, for he saw that she had put all her strength into this fight, and there must be another reason. Suddenly, the teacher came over and said that it must be because of him. Young Sae didn't understand what had happened between them. The girl said that she was once kidnapped by a squad of Wanan, and the benefactor defeated them and rescued her. Then, seeing his level of martial arts proficiency, the girl wanted to become his student, even if it required leaving her family. Because she possessed the art of Thunder Gate, her teacher did not accept her as an apprentice. And so when the girl saw young Seo as Master Duga's apprentice, she almost died of envy. The girl apologized and said that because of her temper, she caused young Seo a lot of inconvenience. The girl also apologized to teacher Dugu and thanked young Seo for answering her challenge. Young Sae asked the teacher why Ten didn't stop earlier. The teacher explained that maybe she wanted to prove her strength to him by defeating him. Guy asked if she did it because she was desperate. Dugu replied that he was right, and told that he had turned her down not because she was a girl, but simply because she didn't have the right qualities. Young Sae realized that this girl had given up the path of a woman. She had chosen the path of loneliness. If you tell her the truth now, it will hurt her even more. A few days later, young Sae invited teacher Dugu to a meeting. The teacher asked what the meeting was about. Young Sae reminded him that he had promised to congratulate him on his housewarming party. The teacher laughed and said that it must be a wonderful gift. And then Dugu saw that it was a book of prosperity. Young Seo said that this technique is based on yang energy. It should help to overcome the energy barriers of heaven and earth. The teacher asked who gives books on improving techniques to housewarming parties. Young Sae laughed and said that he was the giver. Teacher Doug was truly pleased. Young Sae said that it was nothing compared to what Teacher Doug had done for him. Dugu replied that he didn't deserve such a student. However, the teacher thought that there was something strange about this child. 2 more years passed. It was the very last day that young Sae went to the Tan clan to get the elixir. Young Sae was glad that he would finally finish taking the 1000 poison elixir. Thanks to this elixir lately, Young Seo's amount of internal energy had increased significantly, and he had mastered the white lightning technique to perfection. Therefore, as the name of the elixir suggests, most of the poisons no longer affect young Seo. Young Sae thanked girl Tang for providing him with the elixir and said goodbye. The girl smiled and said that they would see each other soon. Young Seo came home and told Jong that he was leaving. The girl was shocked. Young Seo asked that didn't she herself advise him to do that. Young Seo said that he should participate in the Flaming Phoenix competition. Jong replied that he was being conceited. Young Seo said that she was the one who helped him execute the plan. The Flaming Phoenix competition, this is from the largest of the MURIM competitions, in which the best warriors take part. By becoming the winner, young Sae will undermine the heavenly demon sect's plans. This will be a great achievement that everyone will be forced to recognize. Young Sae knew that if he won this competition, he would take another step towards becoming a MURIM elder. Jong asked if young Sae was not going to tell her anything good again. Young Sae said that he would go to Jujong. He's going to go to the trade organization and meet the leader. Jong remembered that young Sae had invested his money in them. She suddenly asked young Sae how he knew that the price of spices would go up. Young Seo smiled and said that actually, he can predict the future by the stars. After a while, young Sae and Jong watched teacher Dugu's son practicing. Young Sae saw that the boy really had talent. In his past life, he was supposed to die, but young Sae saved him. The guy wanted to see how he would grow up. Everyone around him already knew that young Sae was leaving. Suddenly, Teacher Duga's wife came over and told young Sae that it was time for lunch. Mrs. Moon was worried about the boy's departure. The teacher calmed her down and told her not to worry because young Sae could stand up for himself and his skills were enough to be listed among the best fighters. The teacher told young Sae that he had become a real warrior, and so he himself was thinking of sending the guy to the competition. The teacher hoped that young Sae would be able to achieve all the goals he had set for himself. The boy thanked the teacher and said goodbye. Young Sae felt that this was the real beginning. The guy asked to prepare the horses. Suddenly Mrs. Tang came up and said that she was glad to meet him. Young Sae didn't understand what was going on at all. The teacher had told him that the leader of the Tang clan had asked him a few days ago that Jong should go to the competition with young Seo. The teacher asked if young Seo would be willing to accompany the girl. Young Seo replied that it would be a lot of inconvenience. Young Sae realized that even if it was something his teacher was asking for, he couldn't just agree to such unexpected offers so easily. So then young Seo politely refused. And now the girl told young Seo that she had heard that he had refused to fulfill his father's request. So she decided that it would be appropriate to approach and talk to young Sae personally to clarify things. The girl once again asked if young Sae was okay with her traveling with him under his responsibility. Optimistic Jong intervened. I told the boy that it would be more fun to go together, and that one head is good, but two, and even three, are even better. Chan added that Tang is from the Tang clan, so she's a martial artist. Especially she knows how to use poison and avoid traps, and it will be safer with her. Young Sae thought hard and thought it all sounded pretty convincing. He told the girl that he thought she would help them a lot. Young Sae recalled the secret cave created by Gu Jia, who was the best martial artist among the warriors of the past generation. In the place where he spent his last years of life, he left behind all the artifacts and treasures he had gained. In his past life, young Seo didn't discover the cave until 5 years later. This cave has a huge number of mechanisms and traps to protect the treasure from kidnappers. Because of this, getting inside the cave is almost impossible. But together with Tang, who knows how to avoid the trap, young Sae will be able to get into the cave. So young Sae invited Tang to join them. The girl was very happy about it and was very grateful. Chan introduced herself and told Tang that she could just call her sis without any formalities. Tan replied that it was unusual for her, but if it was better, she hoped they would get along well. Their path was very peaceful. Young Sae remembered that he had lost his past life due to the betrayal of the heavenly demon sect, and back then, he thought that this was his end. But the rebirth gave young Seo a chance for a new life, to live a different life from the past, which was like hell, and fulfill his dream of becoming a MURIM elder. 9 years of training young Sae spent for this day. This is the true beginning. The bastards from the heavenly demon sect who had given young Sae another chance were very grateful. In this life, he would repay them tenfold for their betrayal. The journey was long, and they decided to take a break. Jong had a nice conversation with Tang. She even bragged about the beautiful new hair clip she had bought. Young Sae watched from the sidelines, but he didn't realize that Tang had such a feminine side. Suddenly, a crowd of strangers came up to them and began to say that how dare they stop at this place without Ming's permission. The ringleader said that they would have to pay to travel that road. Young Sae thought what kind of idiots they were. The cart driver told them not to worry about anything and to go back to the cart and he would just pay them. Young Sae agreed. The driver came to hand over the money. The ringleader replied that it was good that he had been so cooperative. Suddenly, one of the men turned to the leader and said that the girls were nice. Maybe they should be taken with him. The ringleader replied that the idea was a good one, and before they took them, they should train them properly on a few things. Then the ringleader told the driver that money is money, but they want to take those bitches with them. The driver said that he would pay them more as they were just guests in these lands. Suddenly, the ringleader approached Tan and asked where she was going with her brother. Tan looked at him, and the ringleader wondered what was wrong with the woman's face. The leader was upset and said that no one would marry that chick with that face. Chan started yelling that they were too brave, but one of the men started yelling that they'd only picked up a couple girls in town yesterday and they needed more. The chief replied that he would not marry her, but he could make her his concubine. Afterward, he shouted to his gang that they would already have as many as 4 brides today. Suddenly, there were a huge number of needles in the chest of the ringleader. The leader realized that they were poisonous and started shouting that the bitch was poisonous. His gang started shouting that they had screwed the leader. Tan replied that they would not meet a peaceful death either. The bandits screamed that the bloody girl had killed their leader. They decided they would never let her go alive. Tan replied that it was all very amusing, of course, but there would be none of them alive. The confident brigands attacked the girl, but the fight didn't last more than 10 seconds. In the end, not a single bandit was left alive. Young Sae realized that Tang was a girl raised in a warrior family. There was no way she would remain silent after being insulted like that. Even at the risk of their lives, their family always makes them pay in blood. No one goes unpunished. Thane took out the bandits and decided to help the wounded driver. At that time, the leader woke up. He was going to attack the girl and destroy her. Young Sae reacted in time and protected Tang. Young Sae was surprised because surviving the Tang clan's poison was a great achievement for a brigand. And now he was splattered with the blood of the leader. Young Sae asked the driver how long it would take them to get to the next settlement. The driver said that they had a mountain to drive over, and if they drove without stopping, it would take several days. Young Sae hated the feeling of blood on himself. Tang apologized to the guy and said that she should have prevented this misunderstanding. Young Seo replied that no one could have guessed that the brigand would survive the poisoning. The girl then said that she was embarrassed to ask, but she wanted Young Seo to do her a small favor. The girl said that it seems that these bandits have kidnapped women in the city. Young Sae asked her if she wanted to save them. Tan said that she doesn't know if Young Seo will help her, but after hearing that, she can't let it go, so she asks for his help. She also added that it would make it difficult for Young Seo, then she could handle it alone. The guy responded that there would be no such thing, and they would go together. Young Sae asked the driver to go to the Manhwa side. The driver agreed, and they set off. At this time, the robbers were molesting the girls. The Manhwa side creditor asked one of the hostages why she did not like his body. Suddenly, a servant came into the room and said they were being stormed. The creditor was afraid it was soldiers, but the servant said it was not them. The servant said they say one man and one girl swooped in from different directions and covered the area. The creditor calmed down and asked if he had come to tell him that there were only 2 of them, and ordered them to be dealt with quickly. The servant said he didn't know about the guy, but the girl is using poison. She's probably from the Tang clan. The creditor got angry and asked why the clan needed them. The servant told him that their boys had run into them when they were trying to collect tribute. The moneylender said that even though she was from the Tang clan, there were only 2 of them, and ordered the warriors to hit this girl. The servant asked what they should do with the boy. The creditor smiled wickedly and said he would take care of him himself. Meanwhile, Young Seo threatened the guards to escort them inside. They refused, and Young Seo said he didn't want to spill blood, but they left him no choice. Suddenly, a creditor burst out from behind the guards. He started yelling that Young Sae was a puppy and how dare he barge in. Young Seo replied that his men had attacked them and they had kidnapped the women. The moneylender started laughing and said that he had come to rescue the girls. The guy replied that he would save them, and he also needed water to wash the blood of his men off his clothes. The creditor was infuriated by this and started yelling that Young Seo had also come there to wash himself. He also added that he was a warrior in the Imperial Army and survived the bloody battles. Young Sae replied that that was why he would soon become a corpse. Young Sae didn't bother with the creditor and destroyed him. Everyone around him saw that their leader was dead. Tang saw Young Seo's battle too. She thought that she didn't know who Young Seo really was at all. He agreed to this sortie without expecting any reward for it, and yet he put a lot of effort into it. At such a young age, he had already surpassed many martial artists. Tang thought that suddenly he would be the hero who would change MURIM forever. All the kidnapped girls thanked Young Seo and Tan for what they did for them. Tang also thanked Young Seo for agreeing to help her. Young Sae replied that they should have done it. At this time in Samso town, a certain someone was discussing the recent news. A man shared that this time Young Seo Tang had defeated the brigand Meng and rescued the kidnapped women. Young Seo and Tan were in the place at the time and heard everything. They were discussing that the girl was the daughter of the Tang clan leader. The men marveled at how the 2 of them had taken out a gang of 50 men. They also distributed the things they had obtained during the assault to the women. Jong was amused and started joking that Young Seo and Tan were the real heroes and local stars. The girl also added that it was mostly due to Sis Tang. Jong asked why they decided to give away the trophies without any conditions. Young Sae realized that because of his investment in spices and incense, these trophies were just a drop in the ocean now. The guy knew it was better to do a good deed like Tan wanted. After all, if he impressed upon her that he didn't care about such things and that he was willing to do good deeds, then next time, she would definitely listen to him. Simply put, for young Seo, it's just a foundation stone for an attack on the demonic sect. The guy knew that fame never comes easy, so he just killed the bandits for his own gain. But the rumor had already spread, and the stories had grown. To become the head of a MURIM, you need an impeccable reputation in addition to combat skills. In his past life, young Sae would have preferred to have his name feared. But in this life, he will gradually achieve a good reputation. If young Seo reveals his identity after he achieves his goals, those who long for that righteous knight to appear and make him their hero. Young Sae thought that this battle was useless, but he had figured out something for himself from this situation. Suddenly, Jong told young Seo that they had a problem. The guy didn't expect it and asked what the problem was. The girl said that a demonic sect outlaw had recently appeared in these parts. Yesterday, he killed a disciple of the volcano sect. Young Sae didn't understand and asked what they had to do with it. Jong explained that the volcanic sect got angry and decided to cordon off the entire island, so they can't leave there until that bandit is caught. Chan said she would go look for some connections on the streets, and she and Tana go back to the guest house. Young Sae didn't like another headache, though he figured there was no need to hurry. But he didn't want to waste precious time. Young Seo didn't want to be the one to catch the criminal. He even thought of killing him instead of arresting him, but if the criminal lost to him, the man with no name, that's how the volcano sect will think. That's young Seo's way of saying they don't have enough power. It's the same as beating a beehive. Young Sae decided to just check it out and then let it be. Suddenly, one of the warriors asked young Sae to stop. The warrior asked the guy that was he really trying to avoid being searched. Young Sae said that he didn't understand what was wrong. The warrior replied that it seemed like young Seo was trying to get away from him when he saw him coming. Young Sae explained that there was a misunderstanding and there was no point in disturbing all the passers-by. The warrior said that the demonic sect brigand who killed the disciple was able to escape because of his disguise and transformation skills. The warrior asked the guy's name. Young Sae replied to the warrior that didn't he know that well-mannered people call their name first before asking what a stranger's name was. The warrior told him he'd better cooperate with them, or they'd be forced to talk bad. Young Seo hates those cheap threats and aggressive moves, but he doesn't want to clash with the volcanic sect guy on his own turf. That's why he said what his name is. The warrior said the guy didn't seem to be from around here, and asked if he had any ID with him. Young Seo replied that his friends at the guest house there nearby could confirm his identity. The warrior agreed. They arrived at Tang's house. The warrior asked the girl for her name first, so she could confirm young Sae's identity. The girl introduced herself and said that she was the daughter of the leader of the Tang clan. The warrior introduced himself in return and said that he was a disciple of the Vulcan sect. Young Sae couldn't understand why the warrior didn't even ask for permission to just start talking to her. The warrior said that if young Sae had said from the beginning where they were from, he would never have inconvenienced them. The boy was angry that the warrior's hand was on his shoulder. Suddenly Chan came up and wondered what they were all doing there. The warrior was surprised and asked who it was. He introduced himself to Jong and said that he was a disciple of the volcanic sect. Jong picks up young Seo and says they have some unresolved business and they have to go. Jong told young Sae to ignore him since he's always been like this. Young Sae wondered how Jong knew him. Jong replied that she probably knows. Young Seo replied that even so, his behavior seemed completely inappropriate. Chan told him that he was one of the 10,000 warriors and the only disciple of the Plum Blossom Blade Master. The Master of the Plum Blossom Blade. He is the one who represents the Vulcan sect among the heavenly emperors. He is called a wild sword spirit and a noble blade. Therefore, young Seo knew that it was important to know what was behind this person. Once he becomes the head of the MURIM, young Sae will gain power. And then he'll destroy the arrogant sectarians like him. Jong brought young Seo over and said that they were already at the place. The guy didn't understand what the place was or why they were there. The girl said she brought young Seo to the black market, thinking that young Seo wanted to buy something for herself too. Black markets exist all over the world, where stolen treasures and illicit goods are sold. Young Sae knew of such places only by hearsay, having never been to such places himself. The girl gave the guy a fox mask and told him that if he didn't want to shine his face on the black market, he'd better put it on. Young Sae became curious about what was being sold there. On the way back from the market, young Sae asked Jong to let him know when the market would open again. The girl was surprised that he wanted to come again since he had only bought the elixir. Young Sae said that such elixirs are only made on Medan Mountain. Young Sae said that of course his strength wouldn't increase if he took it, but at a critical moment it could save his life. Chan asked if 20 zlotys for an elixir wasn't expensive. Even the merchant was surprised when the guy offered so much. Young Seo explained that he didn't want to waste time bidding, and 20 zlotys wasn't that much for him. Jong replied that if she had known, she would have bought some too. Young Sae laughed and said he could sell her a couple of his at a pretty reasonable price. Young Sae noticed a man hitting on Tang. The man was shouting that the funny girl was trying to get a price for herself with such an ugly face. Tang asked him if he could answer for what he said. Young Sae didn't understand why everyone decided to cross the path of the daughter of the head of the Tan clan. The man said that Tan is crazy to say such a thing to the head of the consul unit himself. That's when the man was grabbed by the body. He realized it was poison. Tan said, needing to answer her question. Chan walked up to Tan and asked the man if he had decided to molest a member of the Tan clan by being unprepared to be poisoned. The man began to apologize and say he knew nothing, begging for mercy and an antidote. Young Sae saw that judging from the way he was resisting the poison, he was a pretty healthy guy. The guy thought that apparently in their squad they were training to resist poison. The man at the time said that he had gotten drunk and lost his mind. Young Sae asked Tan if he could take over the case. The girl replied that it happened because of her, and she can't be indebted to him again. Young Seo said he had an idea and couldn't give in to him this time if it's okay with her. The girl agreed and said he could do it. Young Sae thanked the girl for such a gesture. Young Sae approached the man and told him that if he wanted to live, he needed to fulfill his request, and he would get the antidote. In fact, he thought he would never forgive them for it and kill them all. Young Seo said he would come to him at night and give him instructions. The man thought it would probably be a strange request. The man's servant asked that after treating the Tang clan girl like this, weren't they in danger right now? The man decided that they would ambush young Seo and attack him, since the guy doesn't even know who he's messing with. The head ordered to gather all the soldiers and hurry up. He decided that this way he would remove the problems with that sucker and the girl from the Tan clan. Suddenly, the door of the room was kicked open by a flying body. Young Sae walked in and asked why he hadn't warned his men that Young Sae was coming at night. After all, people got hurt for nothing. Young Sae asked why it was the head grabbed an axe, probably not to cut down a couple of trees in the middle of the night. The head replied that it was nothing and asked what kind of request Young Sae was asking for. The guy replied that it was nothing out of the ordinary. Just need to find the culprit the Vulcan sect is looking for right now. Also, the guy doesn't care how the head will do it, through connections or with the help of soldiers, but by all means, you have to find him. The man replied that the volcanic sect itself would capture him soon. Young Sae said he wasn't asking to catch him, but just to find out where he was. Young Seo realized that if he found out where the culprit was and gave it to the sect, the city would be open again. A perfect ploy to redeem his debt to the volcano sect. Young Sae tells the head not to worry because Young Sae will report to the sect where the culprit is. Guy reminded him that the head had to find out sooner than the volcanic sect did, or he would die. The head was confused and didn't understand how he could do it faster than the volcanic sect. However, after looking at the body lying nearby, he decided that it was necessary to act faster. After a while, the man came to Young Seo and told him that he had found the culprit. Young Seo realized that the men in their squad knew how to find the right person. Young Se thanked the head and said he could go. And while these Taoists are trying to catch the culprit, he decided to take a look at the show. Young Seo arrived at the site and saw what had already started. He was surprised that they were using the construction of a plum blossom. The guy realized that this seemed to be the crown attack of the Vulcan sect. Even though this Taoist sect only had warriors of the first zenith level, this attack allows them to defeat higher-level warriors. When he is trapped, his own demonic energy drives him insane and destroys him from the inside out. However, this time things didn't go according to plan. The demon had incredible speed and managed to break free. Young Sei thought, what idiots. These Taoists managed to miss the criminal. If he escaped, his plan would be ruined. Young Seo realized that if he left a trace of his sword on the criminal's body, his identity might be revealed. To avoid being caught by the volcanic sect, Young Seo will have to fight with his bare hands. Young Seo noticed an innate rarity in the demon, a talent for concentrating internal energy. The demon started attacking young Sae. There was nowhere else to go, so young Sae fought him. Because of its innate rarity, it was difficult to fight him while trying not to kill him. Young Sae realized that at this rate, the volcanic sect would soon arrive. Young Seo decided to try an internal kick using chi energy. The guy decided to leave it to the local martial arts masters. Suddenly, someone called out to young Sae and said he wanted to talk. Young Sae hadn't even noticed any presence in all this time. At the stranger's side, he noticed the plum mark of the volcanic sect. Young Seo realized that only one person could go unnoticed and wear this mark. Master of the Plum Blossom Blade. Young Sae said that he was happy to meet the master of the Plum Blossom Blade. The master replied. Apparently he already knew him. Young Seo didn't understand what he was doing here. He said, how could one not know about the first blade of the volcanic sect? The master said that the cult adherents would take care of the criminal, and they needed to talk somewhere quiet. They moved, and the master asked why young Sae was trying to escape after he stunned the criminal, and added that judging from the fact that young Seo is wearing a mask, he wanted to keep his identity a secret from the beginning. Young Seo replied that he was afraid that he might have a problem with the volcanic sect after catching the culprit. The master wasn't surprised since the sect is trying to show their ferocity. Master said that the sect was now indebted to young Sa, and added that his disciple should have trusted the guy and not caused trouble. Young Sae remembered that the idiot who had accosted him on the street was a disciple of the master of the Plum Blossom Blade. The master asked if young Sae wanted some kind of reward. Young Sae replied that he just wanted to help, hoping to break the city's cordon sooner, and he had no other motives. The master was surprised and said that young Sae was not greedy at all. Young Sae replied that of course he wanted to be paid for his deeds, but it was foolish to demand a reward in such a situation. Master said that in order to say such a thing in front of him, young Sae must have a lot of courage. Young Seo replied that there is no need to feel fear of elders whom you respect. The master started laughing and said that he liked young Sae more and more. He asked the boy that he didn't come here alone. Young Seo told him that he had come with the daughter of the leader of the Tang clan. The master was surprised and realized that young Seo was the guy accompanying him. Young Sae asked if the master knew him. The master said that he had heard that his disciple had met a girl from the Tang clan and two strangers, and he was interested in that. But to begin with, the master said he didn't understand why nothing was known about young Seo, even though he had all the abilities to defeat the criminal single-handedly. Young Seo replied that it was because he was a student at the Heavenly Dragon School, and that he had only recently set foot on his own path in MURIM, so nothing was known about him. Master said that this was the first time he heard of this school, and it might be one of the hidden schools in MURIM. He also added that judging by young Seo's pure and rich energy, he has a lot of experience behind him. Master said he understood and immediately asked if young Sae could bring his student with him. This made young Seo angry. He didn't understand why the master had said such nonsense and hoped he had imagined it. The master explained that after spending his whole life among the mountains, listening to his teacher's words, he had learned to turn up his nose and shirk his work. The master wants him to be able to realize his shortcomings on this journey. Young Sae thought he was crazy and didn't understand why he had to raise this sucker. He decided that even if the master hated him for it, he wouldn't take his apprentice with him. Young Sae said no, and asked why he was even asking him to do this. The master replied that young Sae's character was unaffected. Master also added that young Seo's intentions are clear enough to have the daughter of the leader of the Tang clan go with him, and that he has enough experience to take leadership over his apprentice as well. Young Sae replies that he and his student will get along in character, and he's sure it will come to a fight. The master replied that it was good on the contrary. The whip calms the mind better than anything else, and if he is defeated by a peer, it will surely bring him down to earth. Then young Sae asked the master if he would be okay with him fighting his disciple using all his strength. Master replied that of course he was not asking young Seo to do it for nothing, but for a special reward. The master took out a plaque. Young Seo realized that it was a token of appreciation from the master of the Plum Blossom Blade. Every clan has such signs, and they mean that the clan is in debt to the warrior. You can't get such a badge for 1,000 gold coins. Young Sae asked the master if he was really willing to give him this token. The master replied that although he was a master of the blade, there was little he could give him because he didn't have enough power or money. In the end, young Sae agreed. The next day, the master's apprentice was already telling the girls that he was very happy to join them and for them to take care of him. Not even an hour later, this Taoist had already pestered young Sae. But he didn't hate him because, thanks to him, the Plum Blossom Blade Master was now indebted to young Sae. And now young Seo just needs to keep an eye on this loser. Suddenly, a student came up and told young Seo that the cart was too cramped and could young Seo ride a horse. Young Sae didn't pay attention and went to the cart. Dao asked him to stop. Hadn't he heard about the request? Young Sae asked him if he had paid even a penny for the wagon. Dao didn't understand what he meant. Young Sae explained that the cart cost money. Young Sae also added that in that case, wouldn't it be fair for the Taoist to go on horseback? He closed the carriage door and wished them a good journey. The journey was long, and Jong asked young Seo if the sect would take revenge on them for treating her adept like this. Young Seo knew that this Taoist was one of the most outstanding warriors before he became the ward of the Plum Blossom Blade Master. And if he crosses the path of the volcanic sect now, then they will prevent him from becoming the head of the MURIM later. So the guy said that Jong is right, and they need to come up with a good excuse. After a long journey, they decided to spend the night by the fire. The Taoist told the same stories about the teacher over and over again. The Taoist said that he was the first sword of the volcanic sect after all, a master of the Plum Blossom Blade. Chan told him that he must be a lovely warrior too. The guy replied that it's nice to hear that, but he has a lot of flaws. Everyone says he's the future of the sect though. Young Seo watched all this from the side and said how pathetic he was. Dao heard this and asked young Seo what he had just said. Young Sae replied that he just remembered the wild dogs they had crossed paths with recently in the forest. The Taoist asked what kind of dogs. Young Sae replied that several dogs had surrounded their prey, but one dog rushed forward and chased the prey. However, the prey was more cunning and fled to its hole. Young Sae asked Das if what that dog did was stupid. Das replied that maybe she had her reasons. Young Seo replied that since they were dogs, they were just left without food. But if you imagine something like that happened in the MURIM, one wrong decision and a crazed killer could get away. Innocent people could get hurt. The Taoist replied that only foolish people speculate about what could have been but didn't happen. Then young Seo asked him if he hadn't really missed it. The Taoist got angry, jumped up and asked young Seo what he was trying to say. Young Seo replied that he was just talking about dogs. And there's no need to react so impulsively and take it personally. It was late at night, and everyone went to bed. Unexpectedly, young Sae was awakened by Das and told that he wanted to talk privately. Young Sae said that he could talk. Then Das suggested walking to another place and talking there. Young Seo agreed, but he didn't understand why he had to go so far. Das asked young Seo why he was allowing himself to do that. The guy replied that he just didn't like him. Das began to chuckle and said that he didn't think young Sae could make him laugh, but the joke wasn't bad. Young Seo replied that it may have sounded like a joke, but he was being sincere. Dao replied that he didn't know what he was talking about. That's when young Sae told him that they had a much stronger bond than he could imagine. Das replied that young Sae probably thinks he sat on Lady Tang's neck. Young Sae replied that he was too quick to judge people. Young Sae realized that it had been a long time since he had encountered people like this. The Taoist had discarded all his manners as soon as they were alone. Then young Seo asked him if he had brought him to this forest just to complain. And if so, he ordered him to go back to the sect, talk to the teacher, and ask him what it was all about. Das turned around and said that there was no point in talking about serious things with non-serious people. Suddenly, he went on the attack. Young Seo asked Das if he really decided to end the argument with a fight. Das asked young Seo if he was scared. The guy replied that he just didn't want to play these games with him. Young Sae turned around and started to walk away, saying that if he had nothing else to add, he wouldn't waste his time. Young Sae realized that should be enough to piss him off, and he knew that Das would go after him. The Taoist got really angry and started yelling that how dare young Seo just run away. This is it, young Sae thought. Young Seo said that could a warrior like Das not be able to control his emotions? Das replied that if he was a worthy warrior, then let him stop talking and draw his sword. Young Seo said that he tried to prevent this fight to the end, But Das unleashed it all on his own. Young Seo immediately warned Das that anything that would happen from this point on from his side was just self-defense.